Fam, what's going on? Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys joining me. Welcome to Monday's show. Today is May 20th. Good morning to you. Let me know where you're coming from inside the comment box. I am coming to you at 7:26 a.m. and there's a lot to talk about today as we open up this beautiful Monday. Now, I'm sure you saw it. Alabama landed not one commitment, but two commitments, each from the class of 2026, right? You had Jamarian Gordon jumping on board, and then you had another prospect who jumped on board yesterday. So, it's amazing to see where we are in terms of the world of recruiting. But, it's one thing after another. Coach Kalen DeBoer, and continue to see like there's great news again and again and again. Dorian Barney committed to the Alabama Crimson Tide. And, he's a highly coveted 4-star out of the state of Georgia, Peachtree Ridge. And I'm going to bring up his graphic card right now. So when you look at what Coach Kalen DeBoer continues to do, look, it's like almost like a broken record. You're like, all these good things continue to happen for him, and they really do. When you have Dorian Barney commit just a day after Jamarian Gordon, and look, just because these guys are 2026, you don't have to, there's a long time for these guys to, and usually the process is, what's up, Ruben? I see you checking in inside the comment box. I get it. I'm with you. Okay. That's why I don't do a lot of 2026 recruiting coverage, because the process usually is commit, then it's like list your top 20, list your top 12, list your top 8, list your top 4, commit, and then you're committed for a while. You take some visits, this and that, and you get all the notoriety and the hypes up, and then you decommit, and then you flip, and then you basically do the whole different thing. What's up, Southern Rag? Good morning. No, what's up, man? I appreciate you. Yeah, class of 2026. That's crazy, right? It makes you feel a little bit older. But from the perspective of looking at recruiting, and I came on yesterday during my walk and talk, and I talked about, let's just kind of zoom out. Okay, so don't get so caught up in like 2026. Get caught up in this. Get caught up in the fact that Coach Kalen DeBoer is recruiting at a very high level, and he recruited well, bringing in. So think about this, is crazy. Okay, Kalen DeBoer is already recruiting 3 classes, okay, at the University of Alabama. That just blew my mind right there, okay? Dorian Barney, class of 2026, jumped on board yesterday. Okay, stay with me. Okay, DW, what's up, man? I see you inside the comment box. If you guys could drop a like on this video. Okay. 2024, Ryan Williams, okay? That was, hey, someday travel. Khalil Jacobs was in town this weekend. Okay, it's kind of a weird situation. So I'm going to star your comment, and I'm going to come back and talk to you about Khalil Jacobs. 2024, Ryan Williams. Okay, who was really supposed to be in the class of 2025. Now he's taking care of class of 2025, and now he's already taking care of a class of 2026. So you're seeing him recruit 3 different classes already, and he just got here. Right, so that's how far the recruiting is going. It's going to be really crazy to see 2027 and then 2028. I think my son is in 2028. I don't even know. I think he's in 2028, which is crazy. So I look at it in terms of recruiting based on where these guys are recruiting in those 3 different phases, those 3 different classes, as well as the transfer portal. Right. So you look at the 2 pickups that Alabama has in 2026. OK, and they both came this weekend. All right. So 2026, you had Jamarian Gordon, who's a 4-star out of Jackson, Alabama. And I think it is always so important. And the call line is going to be open up this morning. I'll be on here probably for an hour. And then at 9, you'll have Ty Hayes. And then at 9:30, you'll have Coach Merrill. And then tonight, you'll have Coach Sean. So that's how we're rolling on Monday. And then tomorrow, I'll probably be on at the same time because my little girl has graduation from 5th grade, which is Tuesday tomorrow at 9 a.m. If you want to follow me on Instagram, drop my handle inside the comment box. Okay. So The two prospects are in from class 2026. And my point is, look what Coach Kalen DeBoer is doing. So he takes care of his home state, right, which is Alabama, clearly. And you got a prospect out of Jackson. And it's so far out. What's up, Stephen M? I see you inside the comment box. But then you also have Dorian Barney, who committed as well, who's a 4-star out of Georgia. So you take care of the Southeast. And one of the things that we were always talking about was how is Coach Kalen DeBoer going to be able to recruit the Southeast, being that he has no coaching ties from here initially, right? You look to the Midwest where he was, and then going out west, and now he's right here in the Southeast, and he's done just fine. And I think the reason he's done just fine is because he's loaded up on coaches that are competent enough to know the recruiting landscape clearly, but also, I mean, the guy is so personable. And one thing that we talked about yesterday, and I had a lot of time to think about this as well. What's up, man? I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us. So when people are nice, sometimes I think people think that's soft, but that's not necessarily the case. Just because he's very cordial, he's done all these interviews, and he's a really polite person, doesn't mean that he's soft, right? I mean, sometimes, and a lot of times, people who are kind, they're the strongest people in the room. And you can't judge his kindness for being soft, and I think there is a fire that lies within his belly. And I think we'll see that in time. But I don't think, maybe he's just really well-rounded in terms of being an emotional, capable man who knows that this point in time, this is where he's at. He's in a really good spot. This is the coaching job of a lifetime. How could you not be happy? And I guarantee you, he understands the responsibilities that come with being a coach at Alabama. But I don't think that, he's soft. I think that he's nice, and I think that he's a player's coach. Raise the bar. What's up? Good morning to you. Corey, good morning. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Raise the bar, man. We love you here, man. I got you. Work is work. Derek Thomas was a very humble and respectful person, not on the field. Exactly. I mean, you kind of look at the players of the past who were maybe nice up front, but, come the lights, people turn into different people, come game time, come competition. So that's one of the things that I've been quick to look at is just the fact that just because he's nice, that has clearly helped with things right now, but I don't think he's soft. And that's why I think I was talking about this yesterday. People feel that Alabama is now vulnerable. I don't think that's the case either. I think that come game time, these guys will lock in, and I think they'll be ready to go. I do miss Coach Saban's kind of cutting remarks during the post-game press conferences or just like the press conferences in general. I feel like, because I can see it from like an analytic standpoint, the press conferences right now are not what they were under Coach Saban. And that was something I was always kind of a little bit nervous about when Coach Saban left, was would the next coach be as impactful in terms of being at the podium? Not necessarily. I mean, he hasn't been as entertaining. But that doesn't mean he's not a good coach. That doesn't mean that he's not doing the right thing with the team. I mean, Alabama has a ton of momentum. Chris, what's up, man? I appreciate you coming to us from Panama City. Yes, stay relentless, no doubt. Coffee with Kyle. So it's 7:30 a.m. right here on Bama Football on YouTube. What are we tracking? I'll open up Monday. Sark After Dark, what's up? Hook'em, good to see you. I like to open up Monday, and I like to give the floor to you because you guys are coming in and you are keeping track of sporting events, Alabama football over the weekend. Clearly, the biggest headline is that Alabama landed 2 prospects from the class of 2026. Good morning, C-Bama. But what do you guys want to talk about? What is on your mind? Let's open up the floor for you guys to put some topics out. I'm going to write them down, and then as they come in, we will talk about those topics. So last week, we had some really great guests on the show. If you guys like the guests on the show, I'll be happy to, bring on more guests. We had Tony Sukalis last week of Tide Illustrated, part of the Rivals.com network. We had Nick Kelly from the Tuscaloosa News. We also had Donnie Lee Jr., who runs the Lab USA right here in Tuscaloosa, and has really done an incredible job from a mentorship standpoint and what he's been able to do with Tuscaloosa. Ronnie, what's up, man? Good morning to you. I appreciate you. Virginia via Theodore, Alabama. And if you want to call in and chat, 205-850-1994. I'll be here up until 8:30, I'm thinking, and then I'm gonna end that stream, and then the new stream for Ty Hayes will start at 9 a.m. So be looking for those notifications. That's how the show is going to operate today. It won't just be like one long show. We will cut up the shows, and then tonight we have Coach Sean and Coach Merrill, and I think we have Coach Jarek on the back end. So that's kind of how the show and the formatting will work for today right here on Bama Football on YouTube. So, any type of topics that you guys are open to talk about, I'm all here for it, and eager to, catch up with you guys right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Now, I appreciate you guys joining me this morning on a beautiful Monday. Got the workout in this morning. So on Mondays, we do kettlebell workout. It's a free kettlebell workout. So if you're in the Tuscaloosa area and you want to get a little bit better, 1% better, you can meet us out at Randall Park at 5:30. That is our AO. AO is our area of operation to get your kettlebell workout in. There's no running. So all you got to do is bring your kettlebell and, we get going. Raise the Bar says, Kyle, if the media or anyone wants to play down Coach KD and the players, that'll give them a bigger chip on their shoulder. Yeah. And look, I think you're absolutely right on that. This will be the first year and Nick Kelly brought this up from the Tuscaloosa News, that Alabama basketball will be ranked higher in the preseason polls than Alabama football. And I'm fine with that. This will be the first time that Alabama basketball has rat poison, right? Because they are going to be that good and they are going to have a target on their back. I still feel that Mark Sears is going to come back 100%. But for the football team, they're going to have some reverse rat poison. And they already have reverse rat poison the minute Coach Saban left, because of the fact that everybody thinks that Alabama was vulnerable. And I don't know where Alabama is going to be ranked in the preseason. Not that the preseason rankings matter, but if I'm Coach Kellen DeBoer, I might have someone print it out, or I might go on the message boards and, because players, come on, they see everything on social media. They read everything. I don't even know where Alabama is going to be ranked in the preseason, right? Because if you look to the current rankings by CBS Sports, just within the SEC, Alabama is ranked 5th, right? And then you go to the Big Ten and you have Ohio State and Oregon and Michigan. You could theoretically say those teams will be ranked over Alabama in the preseason as well. So I don't even know where clearly Alabama is going to be ranked within the top 10, but they might be 9 or 10. I don't know. What do your preseason rankings look like? What's up, Show 44? I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Yeah, definitely, man. Can't wait for the season. Let's get the numbers back up, undefeated 100%. Yeah, and if you guys are interested to become a fan funder of this YouTube channel, which I greatly appreciate, there's a hyperlink above this video, $2.99 to support the overall product. Let's get everybody in green inside the comment box. I appreciate you guys. Chris is talking about Donnie Lee. Donnie Lee really helping out the guys behind the scenes. It's amazing the impact that he's done. We always need mentors, men, women, and mentoring teens might be the most impactful job that we have as a society, honestly. Coach Saban is into mentorship. And, I don't think there's a lot of people mentoring men, right? Men, I feel that men still and women need mentorship throughout their life. And that's why Coach Saban loved coaching. And I think he's going to miss those relationships, as he said, but I think he's also going to miss the mentoring aspect. That's why jokingly people would talk about, this rehab coaching clinic that Coach Saban would have, right? Think about the guys that came in and where they are now, right? We don't talk. I know we have a couple Texas fans in here. You guys know where Steve Sarkisian went. Everything is public. You guys know how he had to rebuild himself. Well, guess where that started? The rebuilding process here at the University of Alabama under Coach Saban. Guys want to talk about Mike Locksley as well? Same thing. Guys want to talk about Butch Jones from Tennessee? Those guys literally were going in an opposite trajectory before Coach Saban. What about Lane Kiffin? And look where Lane Kiffin is right now, right? Not that he ever came back, but I think on the back end, he's retained a really strong connection with Coach Saban, who he basically looks at as a father, right? So I think that overall, the mentorship has been so big and it's so important. That's why I kind of tying it back to Donnie Lee, what he's been able to do in Tuscaloosa, working with teens or players from Alabama that might have run into some issues. Man, who better to lead them in the right direction? And he himself, Donnie Lee, he is not perfect. I am not perfect. But you grow and you help other people grow. So I love that about Donnie Lee. So he runs the Lab USA. So if you have a teenager in Tuscaloosa and you're looking for them to get better, to get faster, to get some mentorship, definitely look up Donnie Lee Jr., the Lab USA. So as I mentioned earlier on the show, I'm going to have the call line open. I think we have a call right now, which is from 256, and I think it is Coach Daryl will lead the show off this morning with Coach Daryl. Coach, what's up, man? I appreciate you being here. 2 commitments this past weekend, and I know it's 2026, so I'm not going to get too excited about 2026 guys because I know they're young in the process. But I think from an overall standpoint, when you zoom out, Coach Kalen DeBoer has done really good recruiting 2024, 2025, and now 2026. It just kind of speaks volumes about him and his coaching staff. Welcome to the show, Coach Daryl.
Good morning, Kyle. You're exactly right. It lays down the foundation. You can't, if you don't have a solid foundation, you just can't have a stable building. And he's laying down the foundation. 2026, that's 2 years away. But guess what? People are going to recruit 2026 just like they're going to recruit 2025. Mm-hmm. They are recruiting at least 2 years in advance. And that's the way it's always really been done, because you pique interest, you get these guys aboard, you get these guys stable and know that they have a stable program, they have a stable coach, they have a stable coaching staff, they have a standard that they can come to that's been proven over the last 17 years and reinforced in a way that, as you said, we could sit here and have a whole show on Coach Saban's accomplishments, mm-hmm. and we could have a whole show for a week on his accomplishments.
Yeah.
So once you have a foundation and you have a guide, a mentor, as you just got through saying, somebody is going to come in here and develop these players. This bodes for great things as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I like the recruiting approach so far. And I was talking about this yesterday, Coach Darrow's. I think sometimes when people are nice, like Coach Kalen DeBoer, like I talked to Donnie Lee last week. I've talked to people that have met Coach Kalen DeBoer, and everybody has said that he is very polite. He's very nice. And sometimes people think nice is soft, but that's not necessarily the case, right, Coach?
That's exactly right. I'm a nice guy, but don't push me too far.
Thank you.
Because at the end of the day, when you get in a corner, you come out punching. Mm-hmm. And I think Kalen DeBoer, people might say, well, Coach Saban was a curmudgeon and, he's this and he's that. But at the end of the day, it's proven that Coach Saban cares about his players. It's proven that he wants to see his players develop, not into great football players, but also into great men for the society that we call the United States of America. So at the end, I think Coach DeBoer's demeanor, it may seem like, he's all smile, but I guarantee there's some dog down there somewhere, and it's going to come out when it needs to come out. It's going to come out when because if you're not, you don't establish a boundary, your players will try to push you around too to see what they can get away with.
For sure. Yeah.
So guess what? That's not going to happen. I don't believe it's going to happen, because I believe if a player needs to be disciplined, if a player needs to be called out in front of everybody, if a player needs to be put down in front of everybody for the purpose of building him up, he'll do that in a second. I don't have any doubts about it.
Yeah, and if you're just joining us, started at 7:30. I'll be here till 8:30, and then Ty will start a new stream at 9. And you also have Coach Merle this morning right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Yesterday here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, I went to a crawfish boil, and it was awesome because we went out to Foster's. If you're familiar with Tuscaloosa, Foster's is about, 25, 30 minutes out. Kind of on the back end of Coker. These are all new places, Coach, that I continue to learn and continue to go through as I continue to meet new friends. And this is a lot through my workout group. But I've, of course, had crawfish before. And if you're local in Tuscaloosa, you know that you have Ingrams and Hamners. So yesterday it was cool because we went out to Foster's and we got about 100 pounds of crawfish. We had about 60 people, maybe 70. And it was cool because we went through the whole crawfish process of, from live to boiling with the sausage, with the corn, with the potatoes, even green beans, which I thought that was something new. And then we put them all out on the table, but it was a good, experience. That was like my first real crawfish boil. Coach, do you do crawfish? Mm-hmm. Are we doing crawfish up in?
I do not.
Yeah. So see, and that's the thing. Some people, there was a table that was like, there was mushrooms too. There was a table that was really hot. Like the crawfish were not like, they were hot, but they were like too much like Zatarain. But overall, yeah, it was a good experience. You know, kind of the I just like the southern aspects. But that and shrimp and grits is like those are like two things that are like truly southern to me. And of course, like Waysider is still like, you know, from back in the day. Coach, what else are we tracking? Like, what else is kind of on your mind as we move through May? And when you look forward to June, you have the football camps. And now Coach is like in his house. I would assume that his office will be, they completely revamped his office. There's no more like wood paneling. It's all glass. It looks like state of the art. What's kind of on your mind, you know, over these last couple of days when you think about Alabama football, recruiting, softball team going to, you know, the next round of the playoffs? Like whatever's on your mind, Coach, go ahead, come with it.
Well, what's on my mind, of course, I'd like to see the University of Alabama do good in all aspects, baseball, softball, gymnastics. I don't follow it closely, but I follow it enough. But what's on my mind is as these days go on, as we get deeper into summer, all of a sudden you start to hear the stories leak out about who's working out, what are they doing, how they're developing, how they're developing brotherhood and a team as teammates. You start to hear those stories leak out, and then as we get toward fall camp, then you start to see those stories become true because you see who's worked out. You see who hasn't done what they. There's a story, and I'm gonna get off and let somebody else get on real quick. After I'm telling you this story, there's a story. In fact, it's on film. Bob Baumhauer. He came in. He came to back after his sophomore year. He had a great sophomore year. He was expected to start, and he looked up on the list. He was number 23. He wasn't a starter. He goes to see Coach Bryant. But he quit. He got mad and quit. And then he took his father. His father took him back with Coach Bryant to talk. And Coach Bryant pulled out a list. Everybody's given a list at the end of the season to improve on, to get better here, to get better there. And I got 22 people that's ahead of you that didn't get better, that got better than you because they did what we asked them to do, and you didn't do anything. So you're not a starter. As far as I'm concerned, you're a quitter. If the only reason I gave you this opportunity is because of your father. And his father talked about it. He came back, and everything he said that Coach Bryant told him to do that he needed to do, it showed up because he hadn't done it. And then from then on, he became an All-American, and the rest is history. So those stories started to leak out. Who's getting better? How are they getting better? How are they crystallizing themselves? How are they bringing themselves into the brotherhood of Alabama Crimson Tide players on this team, on the teams before? Because those brothers that the 2023 team, those are your brothers in spirit also. Because once you're at the University of Alabama, it is a lifestyle. And Kyle, I always appreciate you. I'm not going to stay on long and keep babbling. And have a great day, Kyle. And thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for calling in. My good buddy, Coach Darrell, calling in from Huntsville. I appreciate you. And thank you so much, Patriot Live, for being a member for 4 months. My goodness, right? 4 months. That's been that's the time that, you know, everything kind of went down and you know, Coach Saban, you know, getting out. And it's kind of, when you look back, right? Let me ask you, Undefeated, do we do crawfish type Y if you do crawfish, type N if no crawfish? Y for crawfish, N for no crawfish. It's amazing to think like how much has gone on in these last 4 months, right? When you think about, you know, Coach Saban, Coach DeBoer, like everything that's went on, it's amazing. Show 44 is like spread the newspapers out on the picnic table. Yeah. You know what? We didn't have shrimp. I don't know if shrimp is like a custom with the crawfish, but we didn't have shrimp. Show 44 is so far no on the crawfish. Sunday's my only day that because like you guys know me, I work out with my workout group every single day, besides Sunday. So Monday through Saturday, I'm up, 4:45, 5 a.m. And Sunday I sleep in, but yesterday, got the crawfish in and stuff like that. I try to do like an active recovery on Sunday. That's just like, me personally. So yeah, just kind of, that was a good way to do, Sunday right here in Tuscaloosa. All right, call line is open if you want to call and chat with me. 205-850-1994. Jamie, what's up? I see you inside the comment box. You know what? I think you would like them. I mean, if they're done right, which, if you're going to go somewhere, you're probably going to have a good experience. A lot of it is just kind of understanding like how to do it. I gave a little tutorial on my Instagram. Basically, what I do is I split them in half, suck the head, and then you peel off the tail. And then, you take the meat out and, pop it on in. There's kind of a little bit of excess that you can like scrape off and dump away, but no, it's not too bad. You get the hang of it, but it could be spicy. Like there's a table that was super spicy. Okay. Yeah, this is I started a comment earlier and a lot of people were asking about Khalil Jacobs. This has been a really interesting transfer to follow. I think he's given several schools an opportunity, including Auburn, visits, and he's had a chance to think about it. But what's made it a little bit more interesting is the fact that he entered the transfer portal initially and then pulled his name out. Some prospects that hit the portal, they know where they're going to go, and they even put a do not contact because they already have a school in mind. Does that mean tampering? I don't know. But with Khalil Jacobs, who, by the way, did visit this weekend in Tuscaloosa. So if you followed him on Instagram, you saw that he posted a couple pictures from Tuscaloosa. And I'm sure he's going to post, today, photos of him in the jersey and stuff like that. They do. Marshall, what's up? Good morning to you. I would venture to say that Khalil Jacobs is leaning towards Alabama because of the ties that he has with Kane. Right? Defensive coordinator here at Alabama. They played together. But if I'm playing devil's advocate and I'm recruiting against Alabama and Khalil Jacobs, I don't know where he'd fit on the field, but I don't think you can come to Alabama and fight for a spot with the inside linebackers because they're just so talented, right? Patriot Life in with 5 fan funders. Appreciate it. Patriot Life taking care of the community, which we really appreciate it. If you want to become a fan funder, hit the hyperlink. $2.99 at the top of this video. We really appreciate you guys for being here, and thank you very much, Patriot Life. Love the truck, of course. But if I'm recruiting against Alabama and I'm recruiting for Khalil Jacobs, I'm pointing to the fact that you already have 2 inside linebackers, and that you're going to be kind of a reserve. And then you can kind of point to the other guys within the edge rushers within the 4-2-5, Q Rob or Keanu Koo, and you're going to be like, you can't play over those guys as well. So I don't know. I've talked about this before, that just because you're not at a Power 5, that doesn't mean you can't play over here. My example is Jalen Key, who started, I think, every game last year for Alabama, was actually Mr. Irrelevant in the NFL. We go to a Free Mike in Austin, Texas. Free Mike, what's up, man? Appreciate you calling from, a tough spot in Austin, but I know Big Squishy's probably there. And what's kind of the latest, man? Let's check the connection. Are you in the barber shop or you out in the yard today?
Oh, I'm out in the yard today, Kyle. Thank you for taking my call. But I went in front of the parole. I went in front of the parole board, and I said, "Hey, what do you think?" And they all just gave me the horns down and sent me back to my cell. So it looks like I'll be in here for a while. But hey, all serious. But everything's good, Kyle. Everything's good. We're just cruising through the off season right now. It's fall practice and fall ball is right around the corner. Oh, and SEC media days are coming up, so I know you're going to get positioned for that. And I think it's in Dallas this year, so you might want to consider coming out to Dallas or something like that. But big things coming up, Kyle.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going to Dallas for SEC media day. So taking care of those credentials right now. So I'm excited about it. And you get to be on Radio Row. I think what I'm gonna do is just set up my entire setup at Radio Row and just have interview after interview after interview, which I think will be really good for the channel during that point in time, kind of going into the season. Mike, Kalen DeBoer added 2 prospects from the class of 2026 this past weekend. I don't get too caught up in the 2026 because it's far out, but overall, I was thinking about it. I mean, he's already recruited 2024, Ryan Williams, right? 2025, you see the prospects that are there, 2026, how he's working the transfer portal. I think it gives us, if we zoom out, an idea of where Coach Kalen DeBoer is in terms of working with the players, building the roster, maintaining the roster, recruiting. And look, we're in the honeymoon phase, but you got to be able to recruit and you got to be able to work the transfer portal. Clearly, Kalen DeBoer is doing a really good job in each of those areas. Your thoughts on Coach Kalen DeBoer's overall recruiting philosophy and how it's kind of played out over these last 4 months?
Well, it looks like people are buying into the program, Kyle, and that's what's most important, especially since the GOAT retired. Getting people to buy into the program was job one, and he's done that. And as far as the 2 recruits coming out, I think 2026, well, they're both 4 stars, and that's good to me because as a Bama fan, be honest, we got a little spoiled on bringing in the 4 and 5 stars, but they're both 4 stars. That's a good thing. But I think people are buying into the program, and what I know about Kalen DeBoer is really I just learned about the guy about 5 months ago, to be honest with you. But from what I know about the Kalen DeBoer, I can look at his resume, like we've already discussed a couple of times, and I can tell you this guy's got the best resume in college football, and that includes Nick Saban's resume. Yeah. So, as far as win-loss record, not the national championships, although Kalen DeBoer has national championships at a different level. But I can tell you that I think people are buying into the program. Job one, he's done a very good job of doing that and building. Only thing I'm a little worried about as far as our team this fall coming up in this year is going to be the physicality of the defense. That's one thing I'm a little worried about. So I'm not worried about the offense at all, but the physicality of the defense, especially the back end of it. So I just hope all them transfers come together, all that comes together, because we're going to be going against some teams that have some very good quarterbacks like Georgia and Texas and et cetera. So we got to have some defensive backfield. But one more thing real quick, Kyle, and I'll let you go. You know why I think Nick Saban kind of despised the media a little bit when he gave the media a hard time? Because he did act like he simply did not like the media. You know why? I think that came from the way he got treated in Miami by the media. Because when he coached the Miami Dolphins for 2 years, man, dude, they were so rough on him. I think they were really unfair to Nick Saban. Any little thing he may have said wrong or put off or something, they jumped on him. They destroyed him for sport, man. That's why I think when he got to Tuscaloosa, he was like, I will get back at these guys. This media, so he kind of let him have it a little bit just from what he got from Miami. That's what I kind of think played out a little bit. But and also, Yahoo came up with a top 10 breaker playout list for this year, and Justin Haynes is on the list, the top 10 breaker playout list. So he must be listening into our show because I say Justin Haynes for Heisman. I'm sticking with it. Kyle, thank you for taking my call, my man. Good luck. God bless. Keep up the good work, and have fun there in Dallas, dude. You take care.
All right. Free Mike. I appreciate it. Calling in. And you can call in too, 205-850-1994. Starting off the day right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Today is Monday, May 20th. It is 8 a.m. I appreciate you guys being here. Alabama landing 2 prospects from the class of 2026. Dorian Barney, yesterday, highly coveted 4-star, and Jamarian Gordon out of the class of 2026. Gordon out of Alabama, Jackson, and Dorian out of the state of Georgia. So Coach Kalen DeBoer off to a really good start in the class 2026. When you look at the class of 2025 rankings, Coach Kalen DeBoer is right there. And I know you guys are waiting for these 5 stars, and I would imagine they come at some point in time. Jamie, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. But I think, you kind of look to, like Mike was saying about breakout players. And we talked about this last week in terms of players that could break out or have breakout seasons this year. And Justice Haynes is so easy to go with, but I just don't want to forget or continue to disregard, Jam Miller and what he's able to bring to Alabama's running back room. I mean, I think he might be like the absolute man already. And we're just kind of looking at it as a three-headed approach with Jam, Justice, and Richard, which it probably will be. But I think, certainly Jam is capable to carry the rock himself. And Mike brings up another good point is, he does have some questions about Alabama's defense. I do too, to be honest. I don't think that Alabama's defense from what we saw in the springtime, was overly impressive, right? Like, I wasn't overly impressed with that. However, the guys on the team are impressive. So look, it's like a glorified scrimmage. So I think that I think the defense is going to be right there. And I think that the defense wasn't 100% up to speed in terms of their roster being put together, right? Because you had some holes on the defense and missing a couple guys that you have on roster right now. So I don't know. I think that's probably what everybody in college football, if you're not an Alabama fan, is you're looking at Alabama's defense and being like, okay, if we can attack Alabama, we're going to attack them on defense, and we're going to go head-to-head with them in terms of their offensive production. So I think if you're Kane Womack, you definitely have a chip on your shoulder and like, okay, you don't think I can coach at this level, and we'll see. But I keep reminding you, remember, Coach Kalen DeBoer didn't bring over one coach from Washington. Not one. Not a defensive coach from Washington. And Washington's defense last year, what were they ranked? Like 101st or something like that? Jimmy Lee Baker, what's up, man? Appreciate you. Thanks for being here right here on Bama Football on YouTube. He's saying it's a damn beautiful morning, folks. How are we doing? Appreciate you being here, man. Thank you so much for joining us this morning right here on Bama Football on YouTube. I really appreciate you. Thank you, man, for joining us right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Got Ty Hayes from Roundtable Sports joining us at 9 a.m. along with Coach Merrill. That's how we all roll this morning. And then tonight you got Coach Sean, Coach Jarek, and Coach Merrill is double dipping tonight on Monday, May 20th. Your kids out of school yet? My kids are close. Okay, I got Caden, my son, and I have my kids full time. So got Lacey, who is graduating tomorrow from 5th grade, and then we had her recital this past Saturday. And I have Caden, who is my freshman. And his last day of school is this week, Wednesday. Okay. So I know, we're getting close to the end of the school year. This is like the last busy week, we're, getting the kids out the door this morning and stuff like that. And then we hit summertime. And then, the good thing about summers is, you have your football camps in June for Coach Kalen DeBoer and high school students. And, thank you, Chris. Chris is right. Don't overlook Jam. Thank you. And then you have your high school camps. And so my son went to the kicking camp last year. My son is the inside linebacker. He's 15 years old. I think he's 205 pounds at this point. So he's inside linebacker. He's the MVP last year of the freshman team. And he was also kicker. This year, they're looking at him at inside linebacker and guard, offensive guard for, down the road. Whatever the case is, the high school camps, I can now go to the high school camps if he goes to one of the camps. So, but one of the things that I don't do is I don't live vicariously through my son. Like, I'm not like, you got to get a scholarship. Like, whatever happens, happens. And, we, teach him to be a good person. Same thing with Lacey. That's the ultimate goal. But I am excited about Coach Kalen DeBoer's football camps this June because you get to host talented prospects. And now, as I said earlier in the show, you're comfortable with your overall setup. Coach Kalen DeBoer now is established in his own house. This is his house. And the energy will only intensify because of what Alabama has going on, right? Stephen Ingle says, our youngest of 3 just graduated this past Wednesday. Congratulations to you. Southern Red says, Jam is going to have a bomb season. You can bet 100%. And I think this energy in the summertime, twofolds. Number one, you'll probably the recruiting, I think, will really pick up even more so in June and you'll have like a cookout in July. But I think what it'll show prospects and parents is that the foundation here, it didn't get disrupted when Coach Saban left. You have a new coach, at the helm, but you have new energy. You have new life on top of the already strong brand, right? So, and Chris, I'm with you, man. I can't wait to see the offense, and I can't wait to mess around on the sticks when NCAA football drops on July 16th. I know it comes out the 19th, but I think we're all going to pay the extra to be able to play the game on the 16th. And of course, I'm playing with Jalen Milroe. Right, I'm trying to throw for 300 and rush for over 150 every game. With call line is open 205-850-1994. And you got Ty Hayes rolling in at 9 a.m. as well. So like I said, there's just a lot of positivity in Tuscaloosa right now around Coach Kalen DeBoer. What are other programs around the country that you kind of have an eye on in terms of like you're questioning, like how good are these teams really going to be, or which teams do you feel are might be underrated? What's up, Adam? I'm Pello. I see you inside the comment box. Which teams do you kind of have your eye on, right, when you're looking to the college football landscape? I don't know. For me, it seems like I kind of am curious about Oklahoma. They're currently in CBS's preseason ranking. They're number 8 in the preseason SEC rankings. Nobody's talking about them. Everybody's talking about Texas. And I know it's a long way before Alabama goes to Norman, Oklahoma, but I think that's going to be an ultra challenging game for Alabama, and then have to turn around and play Auburn. So I'm kind of thinking about Oklahoma on the far end. I haven't had a single chance to think about Texas A&M. I'm not even thinking about what's going on over there. Same thing with Kentucky. I don't even, haven't even really thought about those programs. I don't, Michigan, it's crazy. This has been like, I'm not thinking about them as a returning champ. They won't have the same coach. I think that they will have suffered more from a roster and talent depletion perspective than Alabama. Right, than losing Coach Saban. I think Alabama has so much more talent coming back. I think Jim Harbaugh did a great job with Michigan, but I still always question how we all forgot about the sign stealing and that Michigan was able to still waltz in and play in the playoffs. Like, we just forgot about the sign stealing. And maybe it wasn't that big of a deal, but I just think about all kind of the controversy surrounding it. Penn State, I'm never buying Penn State. I'm just not. I think they're always overrated. Even though they're ranked above USC, which is weird with USC now in the Big Ten, I would take USC over Penn State if they were to play. Though USC is a little bit dicey as well. Wisconsin. I said Wisconsin in one of my YouTube shorts, which was wrong, and I'm sorry about that. It's Wisconsin. I got the Badger fans. I get it for you. They are number 7 in the Big Ten rankings, above Nebraska, right? What's up, Drewski? Appreciate you, man. Thanks for being here. David, what's going on? Appreciate you. Thank you very much. Adam is saying, I have no idea how this year is going to turn out. Yes, it is very hard to predict. I feel like all of these teams, there's so many question marks because of transfer portal additions or new conferences, right? You look at the Big 12, the number 1 team predicted to win the Big 12 right now at this point in time is Arizona, right? So you have Arizona, Oklahoma State, Utah, Kansas, West Virginia. And like regionally, I'm like a big regional person. I think that these teams should be like graphically lumped together. So I have a hard time looking at like USC and UCLA being in the Big Ten, Washington being in the Big Ten. Like, that doesn't make sense to me, just like from a visual standpoint. Same thing with like Arizona and West Virginia. They're in the Big 12, right? And then the ACC, we talked about this a couple days ago. I think Ty was on and Merrill. I think even Coach Sean was on the show. We talked about the ACC, and like Florida State has to be the outright winner of that conference. Then you have Clemson, Miami. And look, and Dabo Swinney not taking any transfers and saying that the guys in the transfer portal can't play for him, I think is a bit of a stretch in terms of a statement because there's a lot of guys that hit the portal that could make immediate impacts. His approach is the transfers are coming from high school, whatever the case is. Dabo Swinney has been able to win a national championship within the last, 7 years, 7 seasons? But this is a new landscape of college football. This isn't the days when, so much has changed in 7 seasons. You cannot do the same thing 7 seasons ago and win a national championship or even make the playoffs, and Adam, I think you're right. It's almost kind of like becoming like a pride thing now, right? Dabo is out of touch and too stubborn. It might be. And David, I think you're right. And it's dicey to say that with your first game being Georgia. Because if Georgia comes out the gates and absolutely buries Clemson, let's say it's I don't know, what do you think that, I haven't even looked at the opening line on that game. I would imagine it's 10.5 Georgia. So if Georgia comes out and just completely steamrolls Clemson, I think they're absolutely going to say that they're going to point to that comment from Dabo Swinney. And I think, Clemson will suffer from it. And Chris is saying you're glad that you didn't get Dabo Swinney as your coach. Yeah, I don't think he was ever in play. Never. And I'm with you, Adam. I think Georgia will probably win by 2 touchdowns or more. He was never in play. Dabo Swinney was just never on the board. I think there were some coaches that were floated around that could have been, a guy here in Tuscaloosa. I mean, we'll never know about the Dan Lanning stuff, but I don't think Dan Lanning was ever on the table. Byron, what's up, man? Dabo was starting to look for a job in the NFL. He kind of seems like I could maybe see that. I could see him maybe making a jump. That was kind of the coach that I was pulling for before, the Coach Kellen DeBoer was Lane. I was on the Lane train, but didn't work out, and I think it's fine. But it's been really impressive to see what he's been able to do. Think about this. Completely different coaching philosophies. You have Dabo Swinney at Clemson, and you have Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Let me ask you, from a team perspective, who are you kind of not to say that you're intimidated by any program, but who do you think has a better season and is more dangerous of a team? Ole Miss or Clemson? And is it because of the overall schematics of Lane Kiffin versus Dabo? Or is it because of kind of a compilation of things, meaning that Lane Kiffin worked the transfer portal and his schematics? I think we would all 100% agree that Ole Miss is going to be the much more formidable team, and I think their trajectory is way up, whereas Clemson is kind of stagnant. And I think that Ole Miss would do their thing, just like Georgia, right? We're all picking Georgia to beat Clemson. I think Ole Miss would steamroll Clemson. Thank you. Adam, same thing, right? Yeah, I think you're right. Yes, and this is the thing, LA. I think you bring up a really good point. Is Ole Miss without Clemson, without Brent Venables, is a different team. He never really got the credit I felt that he deserved. Brent Venables, he was kind of always in the background, and maybe that's because Dabo Swinney has, at that point in time, a likable coaching character. I think I don't know what happened. Maybe there was a couple things that he did on TikTok. I'm talking Dabo Swinney that just didn't sit well from a coaching perspective. Oh, I know what it was. When he got into a fight with that caller, right? Remember? It was their version of Pee Wee, and they had an argument, and Dabo Swinney got all fired up. He's kind of overall I don't know, coaching karma kind of trickled down, but it's just not the same anymore. Lane Kiffin, on the other hand, has trolled his way, but he's also won, right? I mean, he only lost 2 games last season, which were to Alabama and Georgia. And now he's loaded. He's found a lot of money in the transfer portal, right? And his NIL, I mean, they've landed top tier talent. Them and Ohio State, Ohio State, Alabama. I think Alabama filled their needs. Those guys went out and got pretty much every single guy that they wanted. Ole Miss also returns the quarterback in Jackson Dart. So yeah, Ole Miss to me is a team that I don't know if anybody is like ultra scary this year in football, but I would imagine that they're, certainly going to be a playoff team. And remember, they do not play Alabama this year. I saw like reading kind of the comment box. They do not play Alabama this season. Chris, I think you bring up a really good point too, is that that could be the one component is Ole Miss. Their defensive coordinator is Pete Golding, right? So I always forget about that too. I don't know why. I always forget that their defensive coordinator is Pete Golding. Webbs, what's up, man? Appreciate you being here. They did Milroe dirty on the new NCAA. Look like so. Yeah, that was the thing. So if you saw the trailer for NCAA football, Jalen Milroe. Look, there was in Patriot Life in with 5 more fan funder memberships. Patriot Life, man, killing it this morning. We appreciate you. But think about this: Jalen Milroe sacked the most. What was he? The most sacked quarterback in college football. The most sacked quarterback ever at Alabama, ever. And then on this game, the NCAA trailer, they had the trailer. Out of all the quarterbacks that could have been sacked, right? They have Jalen Milroe, who was sacked only on the next play to throw that, which we all know was the 4th and 31 to Travis Hunter of Colorado. Right? That we're going to give it to Isaiah Bond. Yeah, Patriot Life is not playing this morning. So make sure that you have turned on inside your membership feed, you turn on your account to accept a gift. So you could be, gifted a membership, like by Patriot Life. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And to everybody that has continued to support us, we really appreciate you guys. 2 prospects in, if you missed it. Dorian Barney and Jameer Gordon, 4-star defensive backs from the class 2026. 4th and 31, also Tua's throw against Georgia in the Natty. Yep, right. That was 2nd and 26. So you had the 4th and 20, the 4th and 31, and the 2nd and 26. It's crazy. The funniest thing that I remember about that 4th and 31 was like after the game, like all those reactions when, they did like a 4th and 31 reaction, and it was a reaction of these fans that were watching on a streaming service. And when Jalen Milroe went to throw the football, the screen froze and they had no idea like what was happening. And there was like the little wheel that was like going around, have service, only to fast forward to when Isaiah Bond had caught the touchdown and he was like celebrating. That was my favorite. And also, there's a guy who has a TikTok. He's very popular. He's like super fan Bama. He was the one that went like absolutely crazy. Jermaine, what's up? Appreciate you. Thanks for being here, man. Good morning to you. I really appreciate you. The trailer should have showed Ty Simpson dropping the ball at the half-yard line. Everybody remembers that. That was against Kentucky, right? No, Ty Simpson, man. Can't wait to see, the type of opportunities if he gets them, what he can do. And then you have a lot of competition in that quarterback room. Yeah, Southern Man's like, Adam, you saying something nice about Milroe? Chattanooga. So I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to this week. So the schedule today, you got Merrill and Ty coming up at 9 a.m. And then tonight you got Coach Sean and Coach Merrill. I think I'm Coach Merrill at 8:30 Central Time. So I might run Sean and then Jarek and then into Merrill. We'll see how it goes. But that's tonight. And just stay tuned, because news happens, boom, I'm on live. So, or yesterday, like I came out with a walk-in talk just on Sunday. So be sure and make sure that you are notified so you know when all these videos drop. And people have straight up asked me, and I'll be honest with you guys about like why I am not on more in the evening time. I currently have my kids full time. So my evening times are really devoted to them. And it's important that I'm there to like drive my son to work. As you guys know, he works at Chick-fil-A, or to take my daughter to dance. So, you know, I don't have family out here in Tuscaloosa. I do have my mom here for a couple of days. She came out to see my daughter's, you know, recital. But other than that, you know, I'm a, you know, single parent. You know, if T isn't helping me, which does an amazing job helping the kids and stuff like that. But I am, you know, a single parent. So the evening times are for them. So I can drive them, be here, dinner, you know, all that stuff. And we'll see how we'll find our groove in the summertime, because summertime, obviously, they don't have school. And then we'll, you know, see how we play out into the actual season. But those are the things, like, even for like SEC media days, I got to figure out, you know, if I'm in Dallas, who is going to be watching my kids during that point in time. Yeah. So a lot of people don't know that. But yeah, I have my kids full time. So that's where I got to be. I got to be there for them, you know, and that, you know, supersedes, you know, even honestly, my job is it's like I have to be there for them no matter what. And that's kind of a commitment that I've made to them. So I appreciate you guys understanding, but I have, you know, full custody of my kids, and that's just that's where I'm at. So appreciate you guys for understanding that, because I get a lot of you guys are like, you know, why aren't you on the night? And that's really why. So that's why I come in the morning. My daughter literally just went to school. Caden is he goes in a little bit later. You know how high school starts a little bit later, but yeah. Webbs, what's up, man? Appreciate you. Kyle, what are your thoughts on Coach D's recruiting? It seems we're hitting the needs, which is very important. Yeah, you know what? That was kind of like the angle of my entire video yesterday, and kind of my opening this morning, is that I don't, like, 2026 doesn't get me like super excited. But when I zoom out and look at 2026, 2025, 2024, transfer portal, I'm excited, because he's maintained the standard of recruiting. Now, we all want to see 5 stars, which program doesn't, but a lot of it is recruiting nationwide and taking care of your back door, right? Like your home turf. He's done a great job recruiting the state of Alabama. The guy's been all over the state of Alabama. Who doesn't like Coach Kalen DeBoer? Right? I mean, God, the guy's really done a really great job. So I don't know. Let me ask the undefeated. What do you guys think? Like, in terms of like 1 to 10, and I get it, he hasn't gotten 5 stars. Efron, 100%. There's no off time. 100%. There's not. But I'm a pro at making really quick, good meals, and then goodness to the air fryer. So I do so in the morning. So I work out. I wake up at 4:45. Go work out at 5:30. Get back at 6:20. Turkey sausage, avocado toast. Kaden likes turkey sausage, so does Lacey, but she doesn't eat a lot. So I do the avocado toast, milk. Then I pack Lacey a lunch and get all that situated. Kaden eats at school. Lacey leaves out the door at 7:09. Walk her to the bus stop. Kaden is picked up with friends, and then they go to school. And then Lacey gets home at 2:50. She has dance 4 nights a week. Kaden has football practice in the mornings, and then Kaden works at Chick-fil-A 3 times a week. So I drive him to work, and then he drives back because he just got his learner's permit. So, you know, there's Nabu Speed, man. I hear you, man. Yeah. Yeah, so you guys have full custody too. I get that, man. Yeah. I hope Ty marries her after having twins. My dad is an identical twin. Doesn't that mean that I could have had twins? I don't know. Dad, who had full custody here too, Kyle. 3 boys. Holy cow. My current wife was a huge help and is a great stepmother. We have 2 daughters. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, congratulations. Patriot Life. Jim Baker, what's up, man? And Adam cracking jokes. Chris is saying kids are everything, 100%. So I think, like, you know, getting back to Webb's point about like the recruiting and everything, I think it's been good. And you carry on a lot of that momentum from Coach Saban and still the brand, because I think when you get to Tuscaloosa and you get to walking inside the halls, you understand that like it's not all gone, and Alabama's still going to be an elite program. They're still up at the top of Mount Rushmore in terms of the college football teams. And now that you have all this stuff going on with basketball, baseball is pretty damn good, softball is pretty damn good, gymnastics killing it. There is so much going on in Tuscaloosa. Coach Saban built it, but the coaches and student athletes continue to maintain it. I'm telling you, like, city is like, it's growing. It's crazy. Webb's House, Chick-fil-A, treating my son. Oh, he loves it. Like, Caden was meant to work at Chick-fil-A. He loves it there. They've been having him at the window because he's a very personable dude, but he works all over. He makes the shakes. He works cash register in the front. He takes your order, when you drive through. That system is called iOS, which I've learned. Really easy system to navigate. So he's been, he's been there for, I think, 2 months now. So he's loving it. And he does 8-hour shifts on Saturdays. And he always gets, every time I pick him up, he has the mac and cheese, which is crazy. And then I picked him up. He's like, "Oh, do you know you could put bacon in it?" So he comes home with mac and cheese and bacon every single time. And I'm like, "Oh man, sounds good." But the shakes are amazing too. There's a lemon berry. He has all these drinks that I didn't even know existed at Chick-fil-A. So we need like the cheat code. But there's like a lemon berry slush that you can get at Chick-fil-A, which is bomb. Adam Lampello saying we're going to win it all in 2025, 2026. What can you imagine if call line is open to 205-850-1994. Could you imagine if Coach Caitlin DeBoer comes in and just wins the national championship? That would be crazy. Look, whoever wins the college football championship, I don't know this year, in my opinion, I'm going to say is the best college football team of all time. Just because of the gauntlet it's going to take to get there. Specifically, if the team goes undefeated, that team will be like, how many games will they play? Like 17, 18 games? Kyle, if you didn't see where Ty Simpson and his girlfriend, really? I didn't see that. So Ty Simpson if you didn't see where Ty Simpson and his girlfriend had twins. No, I didn't see that. That's amazing. I didn't even know you had a kid. Which that's 2. Man. Lisa Fitzhugh, 4 a.m. Yes, exactly. When I train my clients at the gym, got your kids are your priority. Another good reason undefeated to support this channel in addition to the #1 content. Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, literally, a lot of people, don't understand, but this is honestly how I pay the bills. Like, I don't have another job. I might have to get another job, to be honest. But I've been able to do this, for quite some time. But, to be honest, we'll continue to see, how the channel does, but it's been, fragmented. And not only because of that, but there's so many other YouTube channels that are constantly talking Alabama football, right? I mean, there just are. I mean, I think a lot of it is people have seen the success that this channel has, and they want to continue to, have their own channel, which is great. But it's just, I feel sometimes I wonder if it's too diluted, but I don't know. I mean, you just have to kind of roll with it and see. Also, too, I mean, the team has to win. The team has to win a national championship. The team over here, the expectations are so high. So if this team doesn't win a national championship, or if they don't make the playoffs, the channel suffers itself. Hey, what's up, man? Appreciate you being here, man. So those are the things that, I look at as a content creator. And, May, June, July, I mean, those aren't the best months for the content creator. I mean, look how many super chats that we have today. None. But Patriot Life, hooking people up with the fan funderships, which I really appreciate. So, and there's different ways that Roll Tide Patty, what's up? I've been on since 7:30. So, long story short, Roll Tide Patty, we've been talking about 2026. The recruits that just jumped on board, but not we've been zooming out and looking at the overall picture of Coach Caitlin DeBoer and what he's done over the last 4 months here in terms of, because think about this, Roll Tide Patty, 2024, 2025, 2026, and the transfer portal. Those are what the areas of focus that he's done a really good job in going into this next season. Now, he definitely has to win, right? There you go, Patriot Life. Appreciate it. Friends of the owner of... Hey, that's what's up, man. Appreciate it. Servpro, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yeah, we do have a lot of subscribers for sure. Jay Merrill, yeah. Merrill will be up at 9 with Ty. Jason says Coach KD has experience in expanding the playoff system, so he knows what it takes to get through. Yeah, any coach has to be able to grind it out this entire season. I have heard that this coaching staff, because like Coach Saban, he grinded it out. He left at 7. He wouldn't return home till 7. And he always kind of talked about the grind on the coaches. I have heard, this is hearsay because I don't have like multiple sources telling me this, but I heard that Coach Kalen DeBoer will give his coaching staff off Wednesday nights to be with their family. So you know how we would all get Coach Saban's press conference on Wednesday night? I think that might be a family night for Coach Kalen DeBoer. And if you were listening to Donnie Lee Jr. the other day, Coach Kalen DeBoer went off and went grocery shopping on his own, which is like unheard of to everybody else, right? So there might be, some differences in terms of the coaching, but I kind of like that because with this extended schedule, family is important. I think every single coach on that staff has children, right? So like Freddie Roach, he don't live too far from me. I think he has 2 kids. So it's important family time, and I get it. These guys are paid an exceptional amount, and it's a very demanding job. That's why Coach Saban would always have those guys also get full, comprehensive examinations of their body. That's how Steve Sarkisian was able to find out that he had an issue with his heart. Had a minor heart surgery. I don't think there's any minor heart surgery, but he's better for it because Coach Saban would always kind of stress the importance of taking care of your body. Matthew, what's up, man? Good morning to you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Southern Red, yeah, you get that, man. I appreciate it. Matthew, good morning. Respect, I have 2 girls, 10 and 4. Now I get it, man. My kids are now 15 and 11, so I get braces next week. Got to get them braces next week. I'm trying to get Lacey into some camps this summer. Caden's working. So, yeah, full go. I got 2 dogs, just like you. Yesterday, I did a lot of work on my yard, and the plants are looking really good. We got a 251, and we'll take it right now. Hey, good morning. This is Kyle Henderson, who I'm online with, and where are you calling in from?
What's going on, man? It's Jimmy Lee Baker. How y'all doing today?
What's up, Jimmy? I appreciate you. So let me tell you this. First of all, Jimmy, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for always supporting the channel. But the way that the call-in show works, because I heard that a lot of people were upset that I don't know who you are when you call on the show, and that like made people mad. The way that I set up the call-in show, so the call-in show, I couldn't even explain it to people if I tried. It's like a patchwork, honestly. Like I figured out a couple different things. I plugged in stuff, and then I was able to take calls. And the way that I view the calls on the back end is I can just see the area codes. And some people were mad that I didn't know who was calling from. I only know, like, if I see an area code 832, then I can reference, okay, that's Mike. But other than that, like Coach Sean, for example, he would call in. I don't even know, I didn't even know it was him. So, like, if you call in and I don't recognize your number, like, please don't take offense to it because I don't even know how I'm making the call-in show work. And I don't know, this area code from that area code. So when you call in, like, don't take offense to it. Jimmy, I appreciate you calling in. Happy Monday, man. Welcome to the show.
All good. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, hey, I just wanted to talk about DeBoer real quick and then a little bit of LSU's recruiting. So as far as DeBoer goes, your video from yesterday, it kind of touched on him being kind of a nice guy, people not being too pleased with him getting on to players and people. Do you think that has to do with all the cameras that are surrounding the practices and facilities and everything?
Yeah.
I kind of think it's just because DeBoer is a pretty respectable dude, and he's not going to chew anybody's ass, in public. And, a camera makes everything public. So
yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. Before every single person had a camera at these practices, it used to kind of be like the reporters would be out there with like notepads. Okay. So there would be like the editorial writers, right? So like, let's take like a Tony Tsoukalos or like a Nick Kelly. They would be out there and they would be like this, right? And they would be writing down things that they saw. And that was like 2-3 years ago. Now everybody's like this, right? And they're watching every single thing with their phone, and everything is being picked up. So much so, like, let's rewind like 5 years ago. Sal Sinceri, everybody remember him? He was the outside linebackers coach. He would drop an F-bomb every other word, right? Old school coaching. That's fine. It didn't make me mad. I had several coaches who coached me like that. It was just part of it. My dad was a coach. And the SID talked to us and they're like, hey, clip that out, because they felt that, a lot of people would be like sensitive to that type of coaching, because we're in a completely different world now. So you bring up a really good question. Like, if somebody's really on you, but then again, like, I don't know, Kane Womack seemed like to have like a little bit loose tongue. So I don't know. But you can see, right? Like on his mic'd up, like he kind of gets after it a little bit. But I think sometimes people see that, and it might be amplified to where like they're being mean to players, because we're in a softer society. I mean, I think everybody could agree on that, right? And Lynn, what's up, man? I see you inside the comment box. Sal was a damn good coach. He is a good coach. I don't even know where he's at now, if is still an analyst, but I loved him, and I thought he was a really good coach as well. And you look at, his sons, where they've gone as well. They're also coaches and they played, whatever. So I think that's a really good question. I think with Coach Kalen DeBoer, I think there is a fire within his belly, and I'm curious to see if he doesn't curse this season. I would venture against that, because that Georgia game could piss you off. The game of Camp Randall is going to be really challenging. The first couple of games, because let's think about this. If they go like a 3-and-out from the jump or something like that against Western Kentucky, everybody, you know what everybody's going to say? Well, Saban wouldn't have done it this way. Well, and that can only hear that so many times before you're just like, this is my team. So I don't know. I think he's emotionally stable enough to ride it out. But there was a reason that Coach Saban would smash his headset. The standards here are different than they are at Washington. They're not even remotely close. It's just, it's not. Like, the standards are, people want you to beat Western Kentucky 50-0, period. And they should. And people want a championship, period. Yeah. People want a championship right away. And that's the standard at Alabama, and you should have standards, and that should be the standard here. It should always be the standard. So, but I think you bring up a good point. Is like, there are too many cameras on. I don't think so. I think right now it's more about kind of who he is. He's a nice guy, but I think that fire in the belly will come out at some point in time. What else you got, Jimmy? On the line with Jimmy Lee Baker.
Yeah, so LSU just lost the number one wide receiver in the country, DeCarian Moore, and he goes to the same high school as that quarterback, Keelan Russell. I think the quarterback's 2026, but the wide receiver's 2025. Kind of had some swirling going around that Keelan Russell is like really considering Alabama, and then DeCarian Moore, of course, he leaves LSU. So I was just wondering if there was any possibility they may come over to Alabama. I know that they already kind of have some visits lined up, but I was just curious as to if we had a chance to pick him up, or if you had heard anything.
I don't know. I think right now, when you look to DeCarian Moore, I think, Texas could probably be a landing spot, just because, he's from, I guess, Duncanville, right? That makes sense. And I think if you're a wide receiver, you probably want to play for Steve Sarkisian. But I think with that said, too, I think everything's on the table at this point in time, and Alabama needs one of those 5 stars. They recently just offered a quarterback. I don't know. That's a really good question, and I think with Brian Kelly, Coach Saban has said that he's done a really good job with LSU. I would agree. The whole fake accent and stuff like that was a little bit weird. But I don't know. I think they're a 1-point favorite over Alabama for the far out game. They're going to be a challenge. But I didn't like how he went after Dallas Turner. Other than that, I think he's done a really good job. And recruiting wise, people want to play at LSU. It's the same type of athlete. I've always viewed recruiting at LSU the same at Alabama. They have the same type of people. It's just amazing that Coach Saban was always able to have the edge over whether it was Orgeron or Kelly. Because LSU, they have all the pieces in place to do whatever you want. So I don't know. We'll continue to watch DeCarrion Moore in terms of what he does, but I think maybe Texas initially is the team that stands out to me.
All right, cool. Well, I just got one more question for you.
Yeah.
You got the time?
Yeah.
Since we're moving to a 12-team playoff, I just personally don't see where there would be a year where the SEC doesn't have at least 3 teams in the playoff. Am I wrong?
No, I think the SEC. Yeah, no, that's why I say watch out for Alabama and Georgia, who could theoretically play 3 times, right? First on the 28th of September. What happens if they are number 1 and number 2 in the SEC in the SEC? Then they play again. That'd be twice. And then if they're on the opposite side of the playoff bracket or on the same side, that would be 3 times. So I don't know. Look at which team are going to leave out of the playoffs right now in the preseason? Georgia Tech, Ole Miss, LSU, Alabama. One of those teams will fall. It's not going to be Alabama. So let's say LSU falls off the rails. Ole Miss has a very favorable schedule. So does Texas. Georgia's going to be very good. So 4 teams from the SEC is something that I think is really feasible in terms of teams from the SEC that makes the playoffs. I think it wouldn't be far out to see a repeat of the SEC championship and then those 2 teams playing a couple weeks later in the national championship.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
I just think we're the only conference that has any regionality to it, I guess would be the word. But I wouldn't be surprised if we have 5 teams in it next year, to be completely honest with you. So
yeah.
I guess we'll just wait and see. But I appreciate you taking my call, and everybody have a nice day.
All right, take it easy, Jimmy. I appreciate you, man. All right, Jimmy Lee Baker calling. I got Ty Hayes joining me here in a little bit, and then I got Coach Merrill rolling in as well. David is asking how many thousand wide receivers has Sark had at Texas. I don't know. I don't have the stats in front of me. Did Worthy catch for 1,000 yards last year? I don't know. I think what I can say for sure is I feel that Texas is not going to have the same type of wide receivers as they did last year. They're still going to have very capable wide receivers, 2 probably from Alabama and Amari Niblack and Isaiah Bond. I don't know how much Niblack is going to be used, but I know Isaiah Bond is, I'd venture to say he catches 50 balls this year. David Millsay was 1. Worthy in 2024, who is electric. I can't believe he's going with the Chiefs, right? So Patty Mahomes got himself Xavier. Definitely a weapon. What's up, Efron? I see you inside the comment box. I think Florida should go with Lane. Ooh, man, could you imagine? That's scary. That is really scary. Lane Kiffin at Florida. And look, I think that there will be a coaching change at Florida after the season. Nothing against Billy Napier. I think he's a really good coach. I think Florida should be an elite team because of the resources, because of the state that they are in. I think Florida has this back-end schedule that is going to be challenging for any coach. And I think kind of Billy Napier is on the ropes right now. I get it. He got Cormani McClain, he got Grimsley, but I think it's much more than that. But I think that is scary. If Florida is able to pry Lane Kiffin away from Ole Miss, that is terrifying because I think that Florida should be there. They've been there before. You know what? You kind of look back and should they have let go of, Dan Mullen? Right? I get it, the whole Darth Vader thing, and sometimes it was a little bit, he kind of got a little weird. But, he had them winning some games. right? Weren't they in the SEC championship against Alabama? That game was John Mechie, right? I don't know, but that's scary. Wherever Lane Kiffin goes after, see, I thought, and I still feel that Lane Kiffin has outgrown Ole Miss. I didn't know that they had money like they had to go into the transfer portal like this. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I just feel that Ole Miss is never going to be an elite program, and Lane Kiffin needs to be an elite program, like, super elite. I don't know what a Texas, I think, could be a super elite. A Florida, right? Like somewhere, like, especially within his career now, like you kind of look at an Ohio State. Imagine Lane Kiffin at Ohio State. Just saying. That would be terrible. What's more terrifying? Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss or Lane Kiffin at Ohio State? What's more terrifying? Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss or Lane Kiffin at LSU? Lane Kiffin at Florida, right? It's all scary. Lane Kiffin's a hell of a coach. And I mean, how old is he? Is he 45 yet? I don't know how old Kiffin is. But I think Coach Kalen DeBoer will do just fine. And people forget, look, I'm always going to say, and I always forget about this myself, is that Lane Kiffin, or Kalen DeBoer, is undefeated against the Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, and Lincoln Riley, right? Me too, Lynn. But see, Lynn, let me ask you this. Do you feel that Coach Kiffin knew, like, he wanted to be the guy at Alabama, and I think he still wants to be at some point in time, but you never want to be the guy after the guy. You want to be the guy after the guy. David Mills has Tony Mitchell committed to that. No, Tony Mitchell is just like in the portal, right? And same thing with Dio Jones-Bell. Those guys, and Ty brought that up. I had forgotten about that. But Tony Mitchell went into the portal, and he still hasn't decided on where he's going. And same thing with Dio Jones-Bell. And if you're just joining us, Khalil Jacobs was in Alabama this past weekend. If you're not familiar with the names, Khalil Jacobs, linebacker out of South Alabama, who played under Kane Womack, into the transfer portal, took a visit to Auburn. He's been a couple other places. He was in Alabama this past weekend for a visit. And I know it was a big weekend for Alabama football, landing 2 prospects from the class of 2026. So that's kind of where things stand with the Alabama Crimson Tide. Byron, I'm checking your email right now to see what you sent me, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. No way. Ty Simpson. Yeah. Wow. That's so. Earlier, Byron hit me up and he said that Ty Simpson had twins. So congratulations to Ty Simpson on becoming a father. That's wild, man. I can't imagine having twins. So that's what's up. Ty Simpson is a father to twins. I didn't see that anywhere. And usually, like, before my shows, I kind of do like a social media cruising message board, see what like hot topics are out there, but I don't know. I guess I missed on that one. Jimmy Lee Baker is saying Khalil Jacobs is a dude. Only concern is Auburn throwing playing time at him. Yeah, and I think if I'm recruiting against Alabama, I'm certainly going with playing time because I'm like, you're not going to play at Alabama. And who knows? That might very well be the case. I'm confident in the guys that Alabama has right now with the linebacker position, whether it's the edge rushers in the 4-2-5 or whether it is the inside linebackers. I'm very confident in those guys. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Khalil Jacobs. I think, when you look at the numbers, you know how you like keep track of the scholarship numbers? Don't do that. There's enough room for anybody. Like, the numbers don't matter. They always figure it out. How many times, like, I used to always talk with Andrew Bone about this before, like, the transfer portal and all this crazy stuff. And when I would have him on and we would talk recruiting, that would be the number one question. Be like, what are the numbers looking like? How many numbers? And you'd like keep track of this scholarship chart. And then, I started realizing is that it never, it always works out. We've never went into the season and be like, well, Alabama, they don't have numbers. They can't play the first game of the season. So I don't worry about the numbers. I think they could take whoever they want and that's kind of the world that we live in. Is this has this been confirmed? Just look at Ajay Hall. He's a walk-on with $600,000 NIL deal. Ajay Hall, that was such an interesting story to follow because, we were all excited about him to come. Receiver with what we thought was playmaking ability. And he came over here, and I think there was some attitude issues, and he wanted to get an opportunity to get on the field. And be careful what you ask for, because he did get playing time in the back end of the season against Georgia. And he did get opportunities, and he couldn't come through. Dropped some passes, and, then things kind of fell off. And it was kind of like he would tweet these cryptic social media messages. And it just never really worked out for him here at Alabama. He moves on. And now he's at Central Florida. So, Ty, you ready, man? Bring you on? All right. Ty Hayes, Around the Table Sports. What's up, Ty? I appreciate you being here. Ty, don't we have, am I wrong, but didn't KJ Jefferson go to Central Florida too?
Ooh, I think so. I mean, they have had a great haul. Yeah, he's
right?
UCF.
Right. Okay. I like KJ Jefferson. Coach Saban likes KJ Jefferson. I'm sure you do too. He's a damn good quarterback. Okay, so they have him, Ajay Hall, and then the coach at Central Florida. Everybody knows who that is, right? Gus Malzahn. So yeah. I don't know, what happens at Central Florida, but if you look at the quarterback, he tossed Terran Arnold, who's a grown man, down. What did Coach Saban say? He swatted a fly, like a horse. What did he say? He swatted a fly like a horse does on his ass or something. Like, what was his analogy? It was funny. But KJ, yeah, he's a beast, man. Ty, what's up, man? 2 prospects in from the class of 2026. I was saying don't look at it from because people 2026 is too far out. But look, Coach Kalen DeBoer is working in 2024. He did great. 2025 is already working. 2026 and the transfer portal. So when you zoom out, what more could you ask for from Coach Kalen DeBoer other than, bringing some 5 stars?
Yeah, listen, I think this is one of the things I've alluded to for a while is that whenever you look at this staff, they're still getting relationships built in the class of 2025. And inherently, they're going to be at a disadvantage. Even though I think they're going to finish with the top 10 class, they will inherently be at a disadvantage because you have teams like Ohio State that bring so much continuity to the table. You have teams like Oregon that bring far more continuity to the table. Even Auburn at this point brings more continuity to the table, unless you're being recruited by Roach or Gillespie. But when you look at 2026, they're on far more equal footing. So Alabama now has 2 additions in the class of 2026, getting them a top 5 recruiting class in that cycle. Long ways to go. But I would assume that the class of 2026 is going to be a really, really good one for Alabama because this staff will be able to establish relationships that are long-standing as opposed to playing catch-up, which is what they're doing right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. David's saying the Gus bus is filling up. Jimmy Lee Baker is saying UCF, home of the 2017?
Yeah.
When they won the championship. Remember they had a parade and banners and stuff.
Sad.
But you know what was crazy? Okay, so rewind. That year, it was the way that the world works was that Auburn beat Alabama. Alabama still got into the playoffs. Alabama won the championship. And then Central Florida got paired up with Auburn in the bowl game and beat Auburn. That's why they won the championship, right? In their mind.
Yeah, that was a really solid Central Florida team too. And I know Roll Tide Patty asks, does UCF take the Big 12 a toss-up? As I currently sit here, I would take Utah in the Big 12. They return they return Cam Rising, who's coming back from injury. Yep. I think that they might have the best coach in the Big 12 and Kyle Whittingham. No disrespect to Gus Malzahn. I think Gus Malzahn's a fantastic coach, but Kyle Whittingham, I think there's a principled argument that he's the most underrated coach in all of college football.
100%.
Because At Utah, he continues to pump out successful seasons, and they're not recruiting at the level of a lot of these other places. So, but the Big 12 Roll Tide, Patty, we're going to talk about it tonight on my live stream. I think that there's a principled argument that the Big 12 is going to be just as competitive as the SEC, not better than the SEC. The SEC will be better. But when I talk about competitive, I mean a conference cannibalizing itself. And I think that's what we're going to see out the Big 12. And I think it's going to be fireworks.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Big 12 right now. You got me intrigued. So the 2012 Big 12 will stand like this in alpha order. Okay, Arizona State, BYU, Baylor, Cincinnati, Colorado, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas, UCF, Utah, and West Virginia. Now, the preseason rankings read like this by CBS Sports: Arizona number 1, number 2, Oklahoma State, number 3, Utah, number 4, Kansas, number 5, West Virginia. I don't know who is 6 and 7, but yeah, I mean, I think that could certainly be ultra competitive. I mean, when you look to this nice little chart by, I'm on Wikipedia looking at some recruiting rankings where these people finished up. I don't know. It should be one hell of a conference in terms of who's going to jump that top spot. Merrill, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on? Hey, everybody.
You.
Get over the banner. There we go. Yeah. Hey, man. Good morning to everybody. Hope you guys are all doing good. I heard you guys tuning in with a little bit of the recruiting. I mean, I'm excited about the recruiting. I like it. I think this is real quick, and I know you guys are just touching on this, and Ty, my man, good morning.
Good morning.
Much love to you and Kyle. I really enjoy getting on with you guys. So I'll tell you that. Like, it makes my day. I look forward to Mondays so much, just like being able to get in the morning. Like, I don't, I know you, Ty or Kyle, you were kind of hinting at this earlier, like the market's flooded with Alabama content, and good morning, chat and undefeated. What's going on, guys? It's bright and sunny in Seattle. But so I have to put up a thing in my window so I don't get blinded. But I'll tell you what, man, it does feel like on YouTube, like it is flooded. It's just crazy. There's so much stuff out there, and that's how come I think it's fun. Like, we jump on, with like Ty a little bit. We talk about some of the other teams going on, and then we and then jumping in, like Coach Sean has a channel now, which was unique and cool and different, and we had a lot of fun doing that. And so it's cool when we can all kind of come together and jump in and grab different topics and talk about it and relate them back to Alabama football, because I don't feel like a lot of people know how to necessarily translate the two, right? Like, that's the part where you run into issues nowadays, I think, is everybody wants to solely focus on Alabama, and there's so much other stuff that happens that actually affects Alabama. Like, I was just digging through like the coaching trees, and man, I was listening to a video of Nick Saban back in the day when he's at Michigan State. You know what I'm saying? And then seeing like the connections of all these different people he's been in touch with, and not just Nick Saban. I mean, shoot, we can go through like college football history. Again, it's really interesting to see how much Alabama impacts the landscape of college football through history. It is wild.
Coach Saban looked older when he was at Michigan State, and then he really looked old when he was like in the NFL previous, like before Miami. Where was he, with like the Browns or something like that?
Yeah, just Cleveland.
He looked old. He looked like 70, and now if you see him, he looks like early 60s. And I get it. Maybe he's had he definitely dyes his hair, but he kind of looks like in his best spot. So I don't know. But I get what you're saying. It's just like when you kind of tie back everything to Alabama football, everything is like comes back to Alabama football. It's amazing how and I think a lot of that is because of Coach Saban's coaching tree and like how it all kind of trickled down. You look at the top coaches: Kirby Smart used to be here, Steve Sarkisian used to be here, Lane Kiffin used to be here. Dan Lanning, you look to all these other coaches that have ties to the SEC or to Bama. It's amazing. I'm kind of looking down the list. Dabo Sweeney was at Alabama, played here. Mario Cristobal at Miami, coached here, right? I mean, think about all like the coaching impact. But hey, I appreciate everyone joining me for my segment over this last hour. I'm going to turn the keys over to Meryl and Ty. They both agreed to wear beige today, which I requested them to wear beige on Monday. So I appreciate you
It's
guys.
like in Mean Girls. On Monday, we wear beige.
Right, dude.
Tomorrow they will be in. We will decide that on Slack. But Ty and Meryl, do your thing, man. I'll catch up with you guys soon. I love you guys. Undefeated. Thanks for being here on this beautiful Monday, May 20th. As news happens, I will be live. But right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Ty, Meryl, do your thing, man.
Appreciate it, Kyle, as always. I always enjoy whenever we get that 3-person segment, right? Getting to talk to Kyle. Because I think, one, it's a nice way for him to end his segment. He just gets done doing his thing. And then it's almost like because it doesn't feel like we're creating content when it's a group setting. You know what I mean? It just feels like because I think a lot of people, they probably don't know this, but guys, whenever Jake and I talk and we're not recording, it's a lot of the same conversations that are happening when we are recording. So it half the time I look up and I'll be like, oh man, we're in a live right now. Like, and it just feels like we're sitting here on a Monday afternoon on the phone.
Yeah.
So
no, true fact, man. True fact.
Yeah. How you doing, weekend? Man?
Oh, hey, mine was good. I'll go first. Yeah, that's cool. No, mine was good. It's like Seattle weather sucks. You know what I'm saying? Like it goes from cloudy, it goes from sunshine. So you never know. It's like so bipolar here going into summer. And what time? I said Nova Speed. You asked the question, what time is it in Seattle? Let's see. I was up this morning because I like rotate between, obviously, if you guys have seen, between Eastern time and Pacific time when I'm rotating through my West Coast and East Coast schedules. And so it is what time is it right now? Shoot, let me look. It is 7 o'clock. 7 a.m. everybody. 7 a.m. I was up bright and early at 5:30. So yeah, it's good. It's a good day. It's sunny out. It's gonna have a little bit of sun today. It looks like it's gonna trust its gut today. So that's good. But what about you, man? How was your weekend? How was your day?
Man, this weekend was awesome. So Saturday, right? You had some PGA action. You had boxing, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you got to check out that fight.
I did. I did see it. It's a good fight.
I sat outside from 11 in the morning until 6:30. Whenever the Usyk Fury fight ended, I was outside. Had a few cigars, right? Was sitting out there enjoying all of them. Switched it over immediately from that to the UFC fight, where I started it from the very beginning, from the early prelims on. So it was good, right? I got to see Usyk pull off a great win, and I actually had scored it. There was one judge who had it like multiple points for Usyk, and I was like, I had it 1 point for Usyk, right?
Oh, yeah.
So really, really close fight, but I do think that they made the right decision. And I think that the last judge, he had it exactly scored as I had it, with 1 point differential between he and Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
And then Jake, in the evening, I'm not going to lie, a little piece of me, you know how when you get older and there are people that you've looked up to or you've really been a fan of, and you can tell like it's time. You know what I mean? That's how I felt about Edson Barboza. This weekend, he got his butt kicked for 5 rounds straight. And all I could think is it's time. It's time to hang him up, man, because I think the guy landed 200 strikes on him. I mean, just painted his face, both eyes. I mean, looks like he busted up both eyes, nose. I mean, it was messed up. But in between all of that, you had some Alabama commits. So I think we start there, man. Have you gotten a chance to check out either of these guys that committed?
Yeah, I checked out both of them, actually. I mean, because it's right in my wheelhouse, right? These guys are defensive backs. We'll see what happens over the course of time. You could look at him from a safety, cornerback. We'll see. You think he projects more towards cornerback, but man, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what, I like them a lot. 26 commits, whenever you get like a year early commits, it feels good, but it's also something you have to just be like, okay, should I be excited or should I just be patient just due to the volatile market, I should say, of recruiting in college football? Like, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Are they going to stay? Will they not stay? I think these two guys are very much committed, especially, you look at, I guess let's start with Jamarian Gordon because he committed first, right? And Jamarian, right? He's Jackson, Alabama. He's an Alabama boy. I think that kid it fits perfect for him. He stays home. The system works really well for him. If you look at the way he plays, right? I think he goes to Jackson High School. So 6 foot, 175. He plays kind of a safety right now. Basically, he plays single high safety when they run this defense. So it fits obviously what he's used to doing. He feels the zone really well. It's funny because for those who didn't catch the video, we did a great breakdown somewhat of a little bit of the coverage that Womack will run between this coverage, and then you have the vision and break coverage compared to kind of this pattern match coverage that Saban ran. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'll tell you if you haven't seen that video, it's on Coach Sean's channel. Go check it out. A lot of fun. Just my humble opinion, right? And so I'll be honest though, this kid fits that system, like what we've talked about from a standpoint of safety, of vision coverage really well. I mean, both of them do. You watch their game, they both fit it really, really well. So what's your take on Jamarian?
Yeah, I think that the thing about Jamarian Gordon, and it's funny because on Friday, I made a video talking about some of the prospects that Alabama was after, specifically focused on 3. What 3 were they? Let me see. It was Jordan Davis and Dawson Merritt, Dejon Lee, right?
Yeah, like it.
And just kind of dissecting where Alabama stands from my point of view, what they're doing. But one of the things I talked about in that video, as we were discussing Dawson Merritt, was like, hey, one thing I think you're going to start seeing as more time kind of happens is that Kalen DeBoer is really going to be after versatile guys, right? Dawson Merritt's a great example of this. Do you want to play him inside linebacker? Do you want to have him play with his hand in the dirt? Right. Either way, you're going to be good. Personally, I like him off the edge.
I do too.
I really like him off the edge. Hope Alabama gets that win down to Alabama and Nebraska there. But then it's funny, a day later, you get a Jamarian Gordon. And I'm like, well, I just yesterday talked about you're going to start seeing the pattern as more time goes on that this staff is after versatile guys. Noah Carter is a great example of this, right? Where it's like Noah Carter in high school played everything at an elite level, and it was absolutely insane to watch.
Completely.
Jamarian Gordon is one where I think he'll probably be either an interior DB or a safety. Whereas when I look at Barney, that guy, I can't wait to break down his stuff, Jake, because wow. For a sophomore in high school, I don't know that I can remember 5 or 6 defensive backs I've seen here recently that are more technically advanced than where Barney is as a sophomore. I'm watching him correctly flip his hips on double moves, not turning around, right? Like not getting in the spin cycle. He's flipping his hips. That's something that you usually are even working with guys their first year of college. Like, oh, nope, don't go in the spin cycle, flip your hips. As a freshman and sophomore, he's staying with guys and flipping his hips like he's done this for years. I think he's going to be your outside cornerback. But like I said, man, Gordon is so interesting because he can play outside. He can play interior defensive back. He can be more of a safety, husky rover, right? And both of them love contact. And I also like that they both dissect plays really quickly. Really quickly.
100%. I mean, you're spot on with that. I think that's why I liked Gordon so much. I think overall you see the position he plays at that single high safety, or when they do play too high, right? The safety shelf. But I'll tell you, from the single eye safety standpoint, being able to really dissect the plays, understand, how to get in and bracket off the wide receivers if you need to, or get in when you're playing like a vision break coverage, understanding these passing lanes and utilizing them by using your eyes are on the QB, but you're utilizing, route awareness, the depth of the QB drop, right? Which is, there's even more detail that we could go into, and maybe we probably should. Maybe we'll do that in a video or whatnot. But because we can really break this down regarding further into vision break coverage, because it's the vision break coverage, right? Is your eyes are on the quarterback, so you got to be very disciplined not to take them off, but then you also have to be very disciplined to understand, like, what's my route awareness, what's my personnel, if this changes, what potentially could I see. So there's a lot of like prior thinking going on, and then once the ball is snapped, you're aware, and now you can play to your advantages. And the way you learn those advantages is actually the way this defense is taught originally, and it's taught around like, what are the concepts first, like why do we like cover three? This is the concept of cover three. This is what it's meant to defend. And then it goes into like situational awareness, right? So, okay, in the red zone, on third and long, on third and short, right? On, what, based on situational awareness, this is what we would run. And then it's broken down into like assignments, so being able to learn it that way, from like, I guess, the big picture down to the narrow, allows you to understand what everybody else is doing. And once you understand that, it helps you kind of flow through your role a little better. That's what my thought process would be, at least. So it's good to see when they're going after guys with such versatility, right? And you take it into the next guy who just, I guess, committed, which would be Dorian Barney, right? I mean, and Dorian, 6'1", 163, true corner, has very, I guess his skill set, when you brought it up, Ty, is, he looks like a lot like a lot like Brown when it comes down to it.
Saban Brown, that's exactly what
Mhm.
I was thinking as I was watching his highlights
Yeah.
yesterday and this morning. I was like, this kid reminds me so much of Saban Brown, and that they are technically ready. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it's 12 interceptions over 2 years.
Mhm.
And you know what? I think we can play the huddle, right? Because I think that's like copyright free stuff.
Yeah, I think as long as we zoom in originally to like just the video itself. But man, while you're pulling that up, Ty, I'll just kind of dig into my assessment on Brown. I think with Xavier Brown, obviously he's he's ranked in different, obviously all the different industry rankings, but it looks like right now overall he's number 3 cornerback in the entire class of 2026. Very mature, very smart, knows what he wants. I think what's exciting too is if you're early on in this recruiting process and you do make a decision early on, and you're blessed to have these offers as early as these two young men, I'll tell you, man, like there has to be a little bit of pressure relief. I know a lot of people are like, well, just enjoy the process, go see other schools, do all these things. But I get it. I get that part. Like, it's enjoyable, it's cool, you get to see all these things. But what helps you a lot is if you are going to commit early and you're set in what you're doing and you feel good about this, then here's what you do. You then focus and just put in work, because from here on out, like once this commitment process is over, it's like a long celebration birthday, that just feels like it goes on and on and on. But guess what? When your birthday is over, now it's time to move on to the next thing, right? And that's the next day. And the day goes back to normal. But what you can do in this process, right, is you can say, I'm going to start putting in the work, understanding their defense, understanding the terms, really working and honing in on my skills so I'm prepared when I step on the field. We look back at what the Damani Jackson interview, and what did they say about Damani Jackson and getting the opportunities he got early on was preparation. You need to be prepared. What's Nick Saban say? He goes, like, the biggest thing I want from guys is preparation and hard work. because like when it came down to it, when he was recruiting, I was listening to that video of him at Michigan State. He's like, we talk about these guys coming in here and they don't realize like how hard they need to work at times, right? They think it's like a big happy celebration. Well, once you get here, that celebration, this is a hard one for me to explain, because it's like you go through this process where you're getting built up and it's exciting, but then you get on campus and now it's like, all right, you need to put in the work. Like, we're excited for you, but we're going to be on your ass to make sure you get better. And some guys, it's like they can't like break down and say, oh, well, I just felt so pumped up, but now I need to do all this work. What? Like, I'm confused. So that's why it's important that if you just prep yourself early, you can put yourself at an advantage going into college as a freshman.
Absolutely. Before we pull up Dorian, his stuff, let's hit some comments. Everybody in the Undefeated, thank you for being here. Hack, Roll Tide, Patty, Adam, Jimmy Lee Baker. Who else is in here? Drewski is in here. Jamie, Sweet Home, Nove, Southern Red, Lynn, as always. Lynn, happy you're in here, my guy. Artez. We have Byron in here. Let's hit this comment right here. Corey asks, morning, fellas. How you feeling? Saw y'all's video from this weekend. Great topic. To add, and I don't know if anyone else has covered this, but do you think our coverage will produce turnovers in this? Jake, I'll start with you.
I 100% do. The whole point of this vision and break coverage is to provide more turnovers. You look at the teams who've ran this coverage in the past. One of them at one point was Ohio State. And you see like the way overall what they did. They went off their national championship year. They came out, they were suffering a little bit from a defensive standpoint, to switch to a vision and break coverage, away from what everyone else was doing, which was this, match, this match coverage, which can be difficult because the match coverage requires you to pass off. There's a lot of little rules and intricacies. Not saying we won't run it. I do think we run a variation of it, but I think you'll see more of a vision and break. And we're giving you like a basic kind of foundational of what they'll run and teach off of. I think what was interesting with Womack as well is that he doesn't call his defense like a 4-2-5. He does not. He calls it a 3-4 nickel. Just say I didn't realize necessarily that that's the way he likes to call his defense. It's called a swarm D. It's a 3-4 nickel. So it actually integrates closer to what Saban does than what a traditional 4-2-5 does. It's just the personnel of a 4-2-5 that can play in this 3-4 nickel with speed, but also can play 4 down, right? And so you'll see that variation. And I think that's what's kind of the benefit is these guys. Again, we talk about training and repetition. You guys, we saw an early spring where Nick Sheridan and Womack have always had a friendly, good competition. You got to remember Sheridan and Womack were OC and DC at Indiana at one point. They become very close friends. So they're not, and Womack said it, the offense isn't going to hold back. But our goal is to learn from these experiences, make an error, and then correct it, right? It's progression. So you can't expect these guys to come out like everyone saw in spring. It was like, oh my goodness, we're hurting here, and here. Whoa, just pause the brakes, slow down.
And on top of that, Womack isn't going to start heating up an offensive line that already has a few guys kind of banged up. Mm-hmm. Right? Like the offensive line, we didn't have the numbers there. He's not going to start heating up that unit because if you take a few more injuries on that offensive line, it's like, okay, we could be in trouble this year. Mm-hmm. So Womack is going to walk this tightrope of being like, how can I call the A-Day defense to where I'm not trying to necessarily throw everything at them? Because we can't deal with injuries right now, so we have to play fairly base football. Yeah. But simultaneously, how do I call this so that my defense is a learning experience as opposed to just another day, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the second half, they did a great job of this. And this kind of gets us into the second question. Adam asks, why do you all think that Womack's defensive scheme is a better option than Saban's, particularly as cover 7? I don't know that I would say it's better. right?
Mhm.
Because I don't think that I can, in good conscience, say that any defense is better than what Saban did in terms of, I mean, you look at all these guys that go to the NFL.
Yep.
Rashawn Evans, I believe, said it. I believe Minka said something about this where they were like, no, we got to the NFL and it's work, but it's easy because of what we came from.
Yeah.
Right? Like Saban's scheme was so complex. And I've said this before. I'll never forget Denzel as we were watching the Alabama Georgia game. We rewatched it, the one where they won, the 2nd and 26. And
Mhm.
Denzel is breaking down Bama's defense at like 2:00 in the morning in the living room. And he's like, you don't understand how complex this is. He's like, this is not an easy defense. He said it's probably the hardest defense in all of college football to walk into and understand. And while that's great because it gets you ready for the NFL, there are also a few downsides to that. One, it is so complex that you might have to go through like a pilot before they take off. They have their checklist. Oh, there goes I hate Apple
Thumbs up,
so much.
everybody. Make
I
sure you
hate
run those
Apple.
thumbs up midway through. We're going to always remind you.
That's
Thumbs up.
the bane of my existence. But it's almost like a pilot where they have their checklist they have to go through before they
Yeah.
can ever take off. That's
Mhm.
almost like being a defensive back in Nick Saban's scheme. You have a
Mhm.
checklist before you can ever really bear down into your assignment.
100.
What I think Womack is going to do, Adam, is let athletes be athletes. Like,
Mhm.
sure, there will still be checklists, right? Like, you'll still have to make sure if this happens, I do this. But it's going to be much more based on reaction as opposed to having to sit down and think, like, okay, what are the 8 different things that can happen here? And, Corey kind of goes on to say this, and this is something we talked about on Coach Sean's channel, is that with Bama's defense, specifically in the secondary, you either saw them like stink on poop on these wide receivers where there was no separation, or it was a busted coverage. And those busts comes from, oh, well, they ran a switch route and it was who does what. You know what I mean? And it's like now you have a defensive back who's standing there and a wide receiver streaking down the field. That's
Mhm.
kind of where I sit. Jake, your thought?
Yeah, that very much has to do with the rules of like that coverage, that match coverage, right? Because it's a zone until it turns into man, and there's certain rules, and it's created by him and Belichick at Cleveland for the Cleveland Browns because they didn't have the personnel to run a cover 1, and they didn't have the personnel to run a cover 3. So they had to basically, like, it was like mixed up, right? So basically they had to create it to run cover 3, right, into a cover 1, based on certain rules and sets and alignments that were set up, whether it was a 3-by-1 or 2-by-2. So that's how that defense was even created in the first place. It worked great at the time being, but now we're starting to see these offenses do unique looks, and
Fear
this
and
is
shoot
why
Tennessee.
100%. And let's just go to Washington's offense. Good example, okay? Because you guys keep bringing up Kirby Smart. Well, guess who ran Kirby Smart's defense? Dan Lanning. Okay, guys. Dan Lanning ran Kirby Smart's defense. What did DeBoer do to Dan Lanning's defense? I mean, that's a great example. He did it twice in 1 year, and he did it the year before. Okay. Like, so 3 times total. What did he do to Sarkisian's defense? And that, granted, Sarkisian again comes from Saban.
Well,
Sarkisian, one of the most
ironically,
successful, right?
PK. It's
Yeah,
PK's
100%.
defense, and PK
PK.
came from Washington under Chris Peterson.
Well, 100%. But that's a great example. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Ty. With PK, like with his style of defense, and I can speak to that one. It is exactly it's Saban's match coverage. Okay, like that's what it is. And you guys are the thing to understand. Everyone's getting really, really concerned. Well, these offenses today are becoming so dynamic that when they bring up the aspect of the shifting before these plays are being called, what are they meant to do? They're meant to confuse the rules.
Eye candy.
They're meant to confuse the rules of the match coverage because everyone is running it. It became so popular, it's almost overly popular. So what do you do when something becomes so crazy, the market's flooded, and everyone's learning the ways around it. What do? You get innovative. I think you guys are about to see something very innovative. People want to keep bringing it. Like, I think there was last time somebody brought up comments about like Tulane putting up numbers on Womack's defense. And I get it. Womack didn't necessarily play call. He was involved in like the scheme. He's involved. It's his defense, but he's involved in maybe calling a little bit here and there, but he doesn't necessarily play call as a head coach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's taken a little bit of a step back. You saw the same thing with Washington, and I guess a little bit what DeBoer did with Grubb. Okay, there was success, and then at times it wasn't as successful. But now DeBoer gets back involved, right, and then you find success again, and then he takes a step back and lets his guy move forward. Maybe they run into walls here and there. So the next part of that, real quick, is that Womack and Saban have these meetings. And you listen to the fact of how they come together and what they're doing, right, as far as defensively. And Womack's understanding, how his defense and his thought process of it, let's just 3-4 nickel the swarm D, okay, how it correlates with Saban's defense and how these coverages correlate and what benefits and what different things you can use. Remember, he's doing this with, everyone's talking about the personnel. We don't feel like we have the personnel to run this sort of defense. Okay, well, that's Saban's personnel. He recruited it for his defense, right? It should be really, really good then, correct? Yeah. So that's the next points to these is this is perfect mesh, and I think we'll be okay. Defense is not this one thing where you come out and just throw the ball. It's the same thing in basketball. There's discipline, and there's certain rules, and there's certain aspects to it, and there's progression through the game. There's progression through learning it. It gets better over time. You gotta be patient. There's a little bit of patience there.
If we're taking transfers into account, let's just pretend there's a world where, I don't know why, but all these transfers had left and Nick Saban was still the head coach, right? I think a lot of people would feel great because it's still Nick Saban. Jake, I would be worried about the defensive personnel in Saban's defense more than I'm worried about the personnel in Womack's defense, just because with Saban, now you're rolling out these young, inexperienced guys, and it's like, okay, do my match coverage. And it's like, oh boy, that's going to be tough. As opposed to Womack's, where it's like, okay, well, now we're going to let you play off of your athleticism as opposed to having to think about a bunch of guys. So I don't understand when people are worried about the personnel. I think that this is a great defense, no matter what personnel you have, but specifically with the personnel we have, because it allows the athletes to play off of athleticism a bit more. And that's not to say that Saban's didn't. But like Hacker says, I can remember fans thinking guys like Marlon Humphreys and Diggs would struggle in the NFL because they got beat at Bama, but instead they were better in the NFL. It's because that Saban defense is so complex. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's going to be a walk in the park, but it is much more like, hey, see ball, get ball.
Yeah, right? 100%. Like that's perfect, Ty. Like straight on. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's talked about why the vision and break is utilized. It's not rocket science. In the end of the day, you have to stop the guy with the ball, and then you got to cover him.
You're not wrong, but now amplify that by like 5, and that's Saban's defense, Adam. Adam says the vision and break coverage sounds very difficult and requires excellent instincts and judgment. That's why they're at Alabama. Am I wrong? You're not wrong, but now amplify that by 5, and you're at Saban's defense. Like, the match scheme, the way Saban ran it, is, like Denzel told me, the most difficult defense in all of college football. So you're certainly not wrong, Adam. And I'm not saying my contention isn't that it's going to be like, oh, well, this is going to be a top 10 defense. I don't think they will be. I'm going to be very honest. I think we're looking at between 15 to 25.
That's fair.
Right? But I just think for this transition year, Adam, it's still very difficult. And that's probably my fault, because I don't mean to make this sound like, oh, this is a walk in the park to pick up.
Yeah.
It's not, but compared to what Saban was running, it's like guys like Malachi are probably sitting here like, oh, Let's
Yeah,
go.
can play
Right?
a
Like
little more loose.
I'm so excited because I just had to go through like quantum physics, and now I'm being asked to do like something totally different. So it's interesting.
Nah, you're spot on. I mean, it's hard, dude. Like, think of your mind trying to process rules, do it really, really fast. So you have to process rules of when do you play zone and when do you match up man, when do you pass off, right? And when, because I mean that you have to consider that. There's a lot of little rules. Not saying there's not with like vision and break, but I think vision and break allows you to have your eyes on the QB. I think that's where the more difficult part is because a lot of kids come out of high school, and high schools are running this traditional 3-4 now. 4-2-5 is becoming very, very popular. I will say that it's becoming it's the new wave, and I shouldn't even say 4-2-5 because it's not that. This 3-4 nickel,
Nickels in general, like
yeah,
that's
that's
the
just the
new
way it
wave.
rolls today, and so, but guys need to. It does take discipline to watch the quarterback, understand the rules of the quarterback, like right. So, a vision coverage or vision and break, your drop is only as deep as the quarterback's steps. And why is that? For the most part, in certain aspects. This is not like in general, but I mean, for the most part, in where everybody's already aligned, your drop then is only as deep as quarterback steps because there's only a certain amount of route tree that comes out of based on how many steps. That's why they move. A lot of guys move to this shotgun, or like Washington does. Washington, they can't play it off of his steps, right? So okay, so now based on personnel, and then there's more and more and more, and we could go way deep into it, and it would take us to the whole 2-hour segment.
But
But
Adam, you're 100% right.
mhm,
Anywhere between 15 to 25. I think you're perfectly fine based on the offense we're going to field. You don't
mhm,
have to be a top 10 defense. You just can't disregard defense, and you really don't want to be outside the top 30 scoring
yeah.
defenses in the nation if you're trying to win a national championship.
Well, on the defense too, Ty, when it comes down to defense is meant to be played. Don't give up big plays. Keep everything in front of you, right? Um, put pressure on the quarterback. Stop the run. So if we can like play with those three rules, right? Don't give up the big play, meaning like the deep shots. Okay. Dad, do we stop the run and can we put the pressure in? We're gonna be okay. Like I'm not concerned about all that. I know everybody's used to seeing like maybe there's some elite defenses, man. I was watching a highlight of top 50 plays from Alabama football that goes through like 2010 to 2000, I think it's 19. And you just look at like some of these teams, man. Like those teams during that time frame are unbelievable. Like Bama had a monopoly on talent, and it's not like they don't now. I think it's just a little more. It's an interesting playing field now with NIL for sure.
Lynn saying he's got a friend that sent him 3 games of film from last year for South Alabama. I only have one from South Alabama last year, Lynn. I had to go back and get a bunch of the Womack, Indiana film when he was defensive coordinator there to start breaking down. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Jimmy Lee asks, how many receivers get 1,000 yards? I'm going to say 1. And
Mm,
2 get very close. The reason why I'm saying that, DeBoer said something that I absolutely believe is true.
yeah.
Whenever he said, I fit my offenses based on my personnel, it's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
This
Mm-hmm.
running back room he has with Jalen's mobility is different.
Oh man,
Absolutely different.
dude, you're spot on.
So I think you're going to see a receiver that hits like 1,200.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to see an 800, a 700.
Yep.
Maybe a 500 after that, and then you're going to see running backs with unreal stats. Because the amount of talent he has this year, like, don't get me wrong, Washington's wide receiver room and Dylan Johnson last year were phenomenal. God, I don't want to be a homer when I say this. I like Jam or Justice more than I like Dylan Johnson. Then
Oh,
you have Richard Young. Then you have Daniel Hill. Then you have
completely.
Kevin Riley. I mean, that's where I'm gonna say 1,000
Mm,
yard wide receiver, several above 500. I would say 3 above 500, 1 above 1,000, and then running back stats out of this world. Jake, your take. Hey,
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, man. Like so how many receiver get 1,000 yards? I definitely go with 1. And then I agree with you, Ty, on 2 getting close for sure. It's going to be interesting based on the rotation tube, just because of depth. So we'll see in fall ball, like that's going to be the prediction with guys getting the other 2 getting close to 1,000. I'm a little more skeptical on that just because of the rotation and guys just getting to eat. Now, is our receiver going to have over 400? Will these guys have a multiple over 400? I believe so. I do. I think you're going to see a little more patience and a little more comfortable in the pocket with Milroe, but also we don't want to disrupt Milroe's game. Okay, like we look at Lamar Jackson a little bit, his game, he had a great run game, then he really improved in his pass game going into his senior year, like that Heisman year, right? And that's where you see Lamar Jackson also, it benefits him in the NFL. They were able to keep a fine balance regarding him, right? Vince Young was the same way, and Nick Battle brought that up over at Nino Sports Corner, right? So I think what you'll see is you're going to see, if that's just with Milroe alone, all right, Milroe alone in the wide receiver group. Now we go into the running back group. Now, this is where it gets really hard for opponents to figure out what to defend, because are they going to defend Milroe through the air with these wide receivers in the scheme that's brought in? Do they defend him on the ground? Because at any point he can make a decision to run, and he's very dangerous now, or do they focus on staying within the box the best they can and trying to stop the run, because our offensive line is going to have a lot of talent there, right? We really look at the offensive line. There's only one position in question, and that's one of your tackles. And even then, that question is just, who's it going to be? They're going to step up to the game, because you're going to have all those guys in there making them step up. You know, so. And then on top of that, with your running back, like that depth is insane. So who's hot, who's not, right, is going to be a little bit of a game. And it's going to be really, really hard for defenses to game plan on, like, what do we choose to stop? Again, there's rules to playing football, but at one point it's who's going to say, I can't set this rule. I can't stop the run. You know what I mean? I can't stop giving up big plays, right? You know, I can't get pressure on the quarterback. And I think you're going to find that there's a lot of teams who are going to run into this issue against Alabama's offense, just because there is so much talent in that room, and that running game is scary. It's going to set the tone for a lot going into each game.
Yeah, and how did we start off A-Day? You saw that split back look.
100%.
And
unbelievable.
If
Pretty
you
cool.
employ that at Alabama with Milroe and Justice and Jam, I would hate to be a defensive coordinator having to sit there. And let's say you got those two. Then you got Jeremy Bernard, you got Kobe Prentice, and you got Kendrick Law. And you're sitting there thinking, I have no idea what's about to come at me, because
100.
they got 3 guys all across this line that can take the top off the defense.
Yep.
Jeremy Bernard is fantastic.
Oh,
ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, this is a huge year for him. Huge year for him.
I think a lot of Alabama fans get it, but I still think that there's a subsect that are like, oh, that was a good win. That was a fantastic win.
Fantastic.
And Jake, you can speak to this. The Washington fans thought he was next. He was their next Odunze. Like, they were looking at him being like, oh, we're not worried about next year because we got Jeremy Bernard. Well,
for sure.
Unfortunately, you don't. I'm sorry, Washington fans, but at the same time, I'm not, because now I get to watch him in crimp. That guy he is an unbelievable talent. Wasn't he a little bit banged up this past year? And that's.
Yep. He was a little banged up, but at the same time, like you saw him in and out. I think it was just hard to break into that lineup. I mean, Washington did have some depth at wide receiver. I mean, not crazy amount, not like what Alabama has, but they had depth at wide receiver. I mean, and Bernard was the kind of that like fourth man up, I should say, right? Because we saw him a lot when Washington, Jalen McMillan got hurt. We saw Bernard a lot, right? But it really focused heavily on a Doomsday and Polk. Just both unbelievable wide receivers. And on top of that, they really wanted to establish a run game. Like Grubb was really focused on wanting to establish a run game. So maybe like Bernard didn't take off as much. But again, he's now had time to sit in the system, to learn it more. He's comfortable. He's full, feeling ready to roll. He's going to have a fantastic season. But I mean, there's so many different guys we could go after in that wide receiver room, you know?
Yeah, for sure, Kevin. Ryan Williams is going to be a dude, no doubt about that. Now, this is interesting. Ephraim says, remember, Georgia had 2 spies on Milroe. Could you see that a lot in 2024? I'm of the mindset that if Kalen DeBoer encounters a defense, and a lot of these defenses are like, we're going to contribute 2 spies to Milroe, I think he's going to lick his chops and say that's 2 less people that account for anything else in your defense. I am going to hit you over the head again and again.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if any team lines up in 2 spies just for Jalen Milroe, he's like, great, now it's 9 versus 10. Like,
Yeah.
I win. I automatically win. What do you think about that? Because I don't disagree with this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree with this take. But I think DeBoer is the type of guy that if he sees that, he's going to be like, checkmate.
Oh, for sure. I think it's going to be hard for teams to. I don't think teams are going to be able to do that. I don't think any of them are going to, just based on watching Washington's offensive tape. And then on top of that, now you go into this multiple dimensional monster, whether it's the run game, whether it's the quick pass screen game, right? Because you see the different levels of screens and short plays to get the ball out in the open. So the wide receivers, even the tight ends, can make a lot of plays. If you put 2 spies on Milroe, you are at a complete disadvantage, and you will get picked apart because this offense is already trying to spread you out and make you pick your poison, basically. So I think, yeah, we saw it because teams are comfortable. They created rules around it. You know, yeah, of course,
I think he is right here, though,
Mhm.
because Jake, as much as you are 1,000% right,
Yeah.
Kirby is one of those guys where he's like, this is what I do. Beat me at it.
Yeah.
Like that's Kirby's mind. You know what I mean? So I think that especially in the first one, I think that he's right. I think Kirby will try and do it, and I don't think it's going to go well. I'm not saying that Bama wins that game, but Kirby's the one person who I can see that has the gumption to keep this PG to be like, no, this is what I do.
Yeah.
Beat me.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. He's a wine drinker, so that makes sense. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. Any wine drinkers, just joking. But I'll tell you what. No, that's a good point. Like maybe he will say, "Just beat me." You know, I mean, again, I tie it back to Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning takes this defense. It's Kirby's defense, Saban's defense, creates a few things of his own. All it is like changing rules here and there.
Yep.
Like the defenses all stay the same. It's just changing a few rules. Oh, I see a new rule we can implement that can feed off of this and stop this problem. It takes a few elite athletes with quick minds to understand that rule, make a few plays, and now you have taken the defense and made it your own. In the end of the day, it's still the same defense that the Cleveland Browns ran and the Patriots ran, and you know what I'm saying? Like from Saban to Belichick, to all these different coaches who are defensive minded who've come in. They just changed the rules on a few things here and there. It's not like Kirby might do it, but it won't be successful. It's just not at all. Like, and I do think the offensive line, like, tell me where the weakness is on the offensive line. Like, that's the part right now I'm having a difficult time with, because I think, yeah, it's a new scheme, but I don't think there's a weakness overall. I think, like, I've listened to the Jaden Roberts interview. I've listened to Tyler Booker's interview. I've seen Parker Brailsford play. Caden Proctor is probably going to be in one of the best shapes of his life and come out.
He's going to have to be.
Yeah, and he's gonna play his tail off, and I think that you're going to see a new version of Caden Proctor. I think whoever ends up playing that other tackle position is going to mesh and gel with this system because of the communication so strong. I mean, you even have guys like, who's that, Carson Palmer, who broke down Milrose overall, like what he thinks Milrose about to do and why the Heisman hype for this next season. Did you guys all see that on YouTube? Carson Palmer. Yeah, Carson Palmer breaks that down. I can't remember what his show's called, but he breaks down Milroe, but he talks about over and over again the center play. He talks about it 2 or 3 times in a short video, and how difficult it was just based on center play. And he tries to explain that for the people who haven't played like an elite level of quarterback, who have never played quarterback. And that alone, I'll tell you, throws off so much. So if you have a center who can't even get the ball back up into the chest, you take so much timing away. But then if he can't snap, he for sure as hell is not communicating. So what does that do? Now everybody has to free for all. One side's communicating to one side and the other side's communicating to the other side. It's like having your left hand do something different than your right hand half the time.
Yep.
And they don't know what's going on. Right? Now you're able to get to the brain. The brain is that center, and you have somebody who knows how to communicate. You have NFL guys who are taken high in the draft, have talked about this kid's communication abilities. You see that through the fact that he was an All-American in Parker Brailsford, right? Freshman All-American. So I feel very, very good about or it's Jordan Palmer, but Carson Palmer is the one who's doing the breakdown. But yeah, I mean, but yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel really, really good though overall about this offensive line. So,
and Adam, you're not wrong. I've talked a lot about how the offensive line struggled. Now, one thing I will say, and it's something I probably should have pointed out, run blocking, they were really good. Mm-hmm. I mean, in areas where they got to run block and fire off the blocks, I mean, you'd see Booker and Roberts just get to the second level of the defense so quickly. Yeah. But they also, there was nothing done to help the offensive line, right? And this is where I've always asked, like, how many times were screen passes called? I can count screens on one hand from last year, Jake. Mm-hmm. And if you have an offensive line that's getting heated up, you have got to present the defense something that will say, hey, you can't blitz us every single time because I'm going to make you pay.
That's right.
They would just sit there and go like, okay, well, let's try and beat them deep this time. Oh, great. Mm-hmm. We're playing right into the hand of the blitz, right? Like over and over and over again. They're not going to let that happen. But I am still of the mindset that I have to see it from the offensive line. Like, I'm going to be, usually I'm a very positive guy. I'm going to remain slightly pessimistic about the offensive line until I see it. Because like I've always said, Jake, over the past 3 years, if we average it out, Bama's offensive line has ranked 99th in the nation in sacks allowed. That's just not good.
No, 100%, man. And I'm an optimist. You guys got to remember that. Like, I'm one of those people where I always see the positive out of everything, no matter what. So that's probably why, like, my mindset's always this way. If you hear me talking about certain stuff, you won't hear me so much call out necessarily what was negative, right? But granted, not like I won't do it for sure. Trust me, I'll do it. But at the same time, like, when I break things down, I more see it from like a standpoint of, what's good, and that's just hey, that's fair, 100%. And that's why I love being on with Ty, because Ty gives it to you straight from the standpoint of these are what aspects, like you said, you got to see it. I'm excited to see it.
And I certainly think that the offensive line will be better. Yeah. Hacker, what I would say, and I've always said this, a lot of the times from sport media, whenever you hear question, what they really mean is concern. I'll tell you if I have a concern. If I say I'm questioning something, it's just that. It's curiosity. I want to see. I have a question about Alabama's offensive line. The question, how good can you be? I'm not concerned. about the offensive line, right? Like the
Mhm.
more I talk to Jake, the more I talk to Coach Sean, the more we break down this Washington film, it even starts to answer a lot of my questions. But I think I'm just I'm almost at the point where like I thought that Wolford was going to be an answer for this offensive line, and
Yeah.
it wasn't. And so now I'm just like, listen, I know everything logically points that this offensive line is going to be fantastic. I understand that. I just have to see it. Not concerned, curious. That's how I would put it, right? I'm not concerned, I'm curious. Thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I think in the end of the day, like we are very, very curious to see everything. I mean, shoot, I think Lynn had a question in here earlier. Let's see here, Ty,
I'll
if I can.
try and find it.
Yeah,
You go ahead.
I highlighted it. It's under the start.
Perfect.
But there's a question in here about like Womack getting hired, and Lynn, I
There we
thought
go.
that was a very fair question. I'd like to ask you, Ty and Merrill, were either of you surprised by the Womack hire at Alabama, a team that lost 6 games? Ty, what do you think?
No. Um, because whenever you are making a massive transition,
Hmm.
you want to first and foremost, you want complementary football,
Yeah.
right? And this is something that whenever Texas was making their hires, I'll never forget Texas Homer. I talked to him
Okay.
and I was like, okay, what did you think about the hires? He said, I love PK. He's like, but I have a question about this. He said,
Hmm.
typically you don't hire your defensive coordinator last.
Hmm.
Like he's like, because you want to make sure that your offensive philosophy is, and this is going to sound crazy, but you want to make sure your offensive philosophy meshes with your defensive philosophy,
Yeah.
right? Like if you're going to be a stone wall defense, then you probably should run an offense like Michigan,
Hmm.
where we're going to take time off the clock. We're going to be principled and methodical in what we do, and we are going to drag you out. Whereas when you're like a Sark or like we'll see from Mississippi State this year with, oh God, I don't know why I just blanked on their new head coach's
Levy.
name. Jeff Lebby. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Hmm.
Jeff Lebby runs a very quick offense. He might
Yeah.
have his offense out there for all of 30 seconds and then they've 3 and out it.
Yeah.
You want a flexible defense that's going to bend but not break in that aspect. And the
Yep.
goal is always a stonewall defense. But you
Hmm.
don't want to have 2 sides of the ball that aren't complementary. And I think that whenever we look at this, Lynn, these two have a pre-existing relationship, and we already know that their styles are complementary towards each other. And that I think helps you hit the ground running. Jake?
Yeah. Lynn, I see you in the comments. You're already backing up my O-line theory, my brother. Yeah, I think so too. I think they're a Joe Moore award-winning O-line. I really do. I think you'll see that last piece with that other tackle position really come into play as long as everyone stays healthy, right? So, so on my end with Womack, I had to do a little bit of research on him to see how I felt about it. But after I did my research and I kind of dug into Womack, I dug into his overall defense. It's hard because they're like, well, these guys are losing games. Yes, he loses 6 games, right? Like, okay, geez, like, is that guy really a quality hire? And then the next question is like, oh, great, he was a coordinator at Indiana. It's funny though, because as you start to look at Indiana, you start to realize that during this time frame of Indiana, even maybe you're starting to see it now, is they do turn out a lot of coaches who come through Indiana, end up going throughout the NCAA within football, and there's a lot of success. I don't know what it is, if Indiana's like a stopping ground for coaches or one of those areas that
That's like Utah
allows you.
State.
Yeah, it kind of allows you to get your feet wet and start to find things that work. It's like a great school of balance of you can get a decent amount of talent and decent amount of depth to run the schemes you need to see what will be successful, what doesn't. You play against decent competition, some really hard competition. So I think that's maybe why it's looked at that way. But man, with Womack, again, Ty, you hit the nail on the head. the fluidity, continuity, I guess, overall with what Kalen DeBoer is doing offensively and what the defense is doing defensively in Womack, that familiarity from a standpoint that they were over at Indiana together. I think it also helps that when we do look at Kane and how he's improved year after year, granted, we do have to take into consideration what necessarily he has at these other schools. And, as a head coach, necessarily you're not doing everything. You have new guys calling your schemes at times, but maybe they have their own rules to the way they call the scheme, because remember, it's all based on rules, right? So there's so many little aspects. I think Kane was a great pickup from a recruiting aspect. I don't think it's just from defense. I think it's recruiting. I think even he says it in an interview. I think it was the next round. He says in the interview, it was time for me to make a change back to defensive coordinator, get my feet wet again. Maybe at times guys excel their career too fast, right? And they need to take a step back. Like we can see that in Mo Lindquist do, right? Where you can take a step back and jump back into the meat and potatoes of things instead of like overall, overseeing everything. Sometimes it's good to see the processes from an up close level of what everybody's doing. Mo's a great example, right? To go from the head dude, CEO, down to maybe let's just say in retail, a store manager, right? Or a district manager, better yet. And he's kind of overseeing these stores. He knew what he wanted from the CEO perspective, but now he gets to see maybe a little more in depth, and he can focus in a little bit more here. And there's some new perspectives and changes that help him go back up to that CEO position and have even more success. I think the same thing you see in Womack, and I do like the fact that what Womack is doing is he's constantly trying to get better in his meetings with Saban. I think that ends up being, I think we're just going to see a really good product in the end. I really do. I have faith in that.
Yeah, 100%. Shout out to Shane. Saying what's going on, guys. Been last minute, been working 24/7 and getting ready for my daughter to be born. Roll Tide roll. Congratulations, Shane.
Oh.
Hopefully here soon we get the great news that everything went well and that you have welcomed a healthy baby girl
100%.
into the world. Keep us
Congrats.
updated on that, Shane. Really, really excited to hear the good news.
I'm a girl dad too, bro. I'm a girl dad too.
Utah's in the Big 12 now.
Yep. They made a move. A move.
And listen, we're going to talk about that this evening. I think that the Big 12 is going to be as fun of a conference to watch as any conference in the nation this year.
I think so too.
We'll break that down this evening, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, over at Around the Table Sports. We're going to be breaking down, just kind of an early preview. We're going to be taking a look at the Power Four, right? Because the Pac-12, RIP. Right? RIP.
Mm-hmm.
But
sad, dude.
Yeah. It's so crazy. The Pac died on the year where it was the best. For since 2010, I don't think that the Pac has been as competitive as it was this year, top to bottom. Arizona was real good. You had USC was kind of disappointing, but let's be honest, you still had to defend Caleb.
Yep.
All right, that's not a walk in the park.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon was real good. Washington was real good. Utah was Utah, and they did it without Rising got hurt. I mean, the Pac was real solid this past year, and that's the year that they die. And that's the thing that I'm just like,
so disappointing, man. Like, it dies out of greed and people unwilling to just make decisions and then start taking steps. Like, I could go into that all day. Just, I've played in the Pac-10. It's just disappointing. There's a lot of tradition and history there too. I mean, and a lot of these teams, it's crazy, is like you have all these teams and their history and their impacts on the SEC and the SEC's history on them. And I mean, it just sucks. It's a bummer, but nothing you can do about it now until we'll see what happens in a few years. Who knows? Everything's going to change, but it's all good. Like, Is what it is. I'm excited for this next season. I'm going to be honest with you. I think the fact that like the video game comes out, I know for some of you in here who aren't big like video game people, that's fine. Like, trust me, I get it. But I do think the video game aspect is going to have a huge impact on the level of excitement and rise again in college football, along with going into a year of multi-team playoff.
Which I don't think is going to work out the way people think. I think that first round of playoffs, you're going to see teams getting skull dragged. I just do, right? Like, and I hope to be proven wrong, but I mean, we've seen teams that are technical playoff teams under this new rule play one of those like top 4 teams, and it doesn't go well. Right. It just doesn't go well. I still think at the end of the day, and I know they're trying to increase parity.
Yeah.
I just think that there's this unfortunate reality that until we get revenue sharing, we're going to have to I don't think that the expanded college football playoffs, Jake, is going to be what increases parity. I think revenue sharing will increase parity. Because now with NIL, you more than ever, it's the haves versus the have-nots.
Yeah. I mean, you look at, man, there's so much I could go into on this, but a team like Oregon's a really good example. Oregon probably shouldn't be having what they have resource-wise, just based on like location, based on a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, not just location, but overall, I guess, just being like a Pac-12 team in the Pacific Northwest, let's just be honest, or what was a Pac-12 team. But they do have the resources due to their finances. I mean, it helps having Phil Knight fund their program.
Phil Knight's a Fiji, by the way.
I mean, I like Phil Knight, and that's all good. But still, these stuff like that, there just needs to be a continuously working to. If everyone wants to talk about like evening the playing field because of the dominance Alabama had for so long, because that's what it came down to. You know what I'm saying? The people are just getting pissed off. It was like New England Patriots winning year after year, continuously going to Super Bowl. But that's okay. Well, then work to even the playing field. Don't just set it in one corner or this corner or that corner or this side or this league or that league. You know what I'm saying? So, and I think they'll get to that. I do. I think everything's always trying to improve. NCAA is just slower.
Oh God. Don't get me started on the NCAA. NCAA, if you have anybody that happens to tune in, pay me, let me come in there, bust some heads, and I promise you, though I don't know exactly what I'm doing, we will see a tangible difference. Let fans have more of a say. Because I think that there's a disconnect between the NCAA and fans, and I'm going to be honest with you, NCAA. And I'm not just saying me, I'm saying any fan, I think, has a better pulse on what's better for college football than some of you do, because I feel like you guys are in your high rise, in your big wig suits, out of touch with what the general fans want in college football. Let me come in there. I'll only say half rude things. I'll keep Blaze far away, because if Blaze goes in there, I mean, the whole place will burn, right? Like that's
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. Blaze would definitely set it on fire. That's for sure.
Oh, Blaze would have a time. Some comments I want to get to. Shane, I don't disagree with you. I think NIL is a great thing, right? And like even Saban was on Capitol Hill. And you want to know what fired me up about this, Jake? When Saban was on Capitol Hill, you had all these people saying, "Oh, see." And I love this fan base, but I did get it more from this fan base than any other Texas fans. They were like, see, he couldn't keep up. And I'm like, he's beat y'all in recruiting every year, even though you have $1 billion.
Yeah.
What? You didn't finish better than them once in recruiting. So how did it, please do tell. How did it stop Saban? Right? Because go ahead.
That's what I'm saying, man. No, I mean that's a great point, Ty. Like, how did it stop Saban? It didn't. Not at all. So, if anything, from a standpoint of Nick's side, I think he's such a great, like, overall, like, speaker. I think people, when he does talk, people listen. It's easy to come in touch with what he's saying, and not to mention just the ability to win. Winners win, and that went a long ways. And the fact that I think you look at the positions he coached, right? He coached DBs. He's the head coach, but he coached defensive backs. Okay, there's a lot to be said about those types of athletes coming into your program and balling out the way a lot of them did. But just in general, I think, once you set a tone, or the standard's been truly set, right? But you demonstrate who you are, and players would rather play for that than obviously the money aspect, right? Well, a good chunk of them, just because they realize, like, the benefit, how much further, and that good shout out to them and how they were raised, because there's a lot to be said about learning from experience, learning from those who are very great, and what it can do to your life later on, rather than just taking a pot of gold and praying that it works out.
Well, and yeah, and I don't mean to pin it all on the UT fan base, but whenever I would talk about this, I'd get fans from other teams saying Saban is done now. The NIL is why he retired. And I'm like, okay, I think he retired because he's old.
Yeah.
Right. He's now got, he's 70 plus years old. He's done it all. He's the GOAT. I think that's why he retired. But 2, did your team beat him in recruiting? Because if you're saying that Saban couldn't adapt to NIL and that's why he's out, then shouldn't your head coach be fired? If they didn't beat Saban in recruiting, and your contention is that now your university is in a place to supersede Alabama because shouldn't your whole organization be fired? Because you couldn't beat him then? Like that argument, every time I would hear it, I'd be like, I don't think you realize what you've just argued. Like, I don't think you get what you just said, right? Because if you did, then your head coach would be on the hot seat. Because Nick Saban finished as number 1 or number 2 in recruiting every year with NIL. So, well, it didn't change parity all that much, Jay. I mean, the top 10 looks like the top 10 over the past 10 years. But the thing that gets me is everybody was saying, like, oh, see, Nick Saban's against players getting paid. Jake, that's how I know they didn't listen to what he said. Nick Saban advocated not only for NIL, but to add in revenue sharing on top of NIL, so that revenue sharing is really the pay for play, and NIL gets to be exactly what it was meant to be. Oh, Gatorade, do you want to go sponsor DJU?
Yep.
Go sponsor DJU. That's beautiful. That's awesome. Ford, you want to run a campaign with Jalen Milroe? Awesome, man. Cool. That's what this was supposed to be. And it's like, how is him advocating for the players to get more money, him saying he doesn't want the players to get paid? Like, every time I heard that, I was like, comprehension is just how are we here, Jake? I don't get it. That would always frustrate me, because I'm like, it's a bad argument, and nothing makes me madder than bad arguments.
Oh, I know that, Ty. That's 100%. Like, nothing makes Ty more mad than bad arguments. But I think that's the thing too, is like, you look over, like, the whole entire playing field and whatnot, and with Saban, his just overall ability to continuously stay above the rest, even at a point of what everyone wanted to say was that he just wouldn't adjust. Okay, I mean, yeah, he got a discount. We could say that, but I think it had a lot to do with who he was, what he's done, and what was very impressive through his overall career, and what in the championships and just type of person and players he turned out. But to say he retired because he couldn't adjust to NIL, right? Like, that's not it at all. I mean, completely. I think
multifaceted.
And I think too, Ty, like, here's the thing, is you're right. The guy has done it all. He's 72 years old. Okay. He has kids who are grown. He did, which I'm sure he sounds like he was a great dad and tried to get him involved as much as possible and be around him. But, there comes a point in time, like we all hit those points, and coaching's a tough career. Okay. It's very much like I told in last week on Friday when we were talking with Darian Lee Jr., right? Is like that, I was a police officer. I come from a tough career prior to doing this. All right. So I know exactly what it's like from a stress standpoint, from long hours, from craziness. And it can be rough on your family. And so you have to think at that time frame in his life, with Coach Saban being as old as he is, the amount of time, the success that he had, at that point, you have to say, like, hey, it's time to step away and focus on some of the other things and just take a deep breath. Finally, like, be like, today I can wake up and I do not have to get up at a certain time. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to do these things. Like, good for him. And that's what I think it was, is I think, and he loves his wife. In the end, he wanted time with his family.
How many years did the guy coach?
Oh God, you look at basically he was recruited back into coaching right when he got finished playing over at Kent State.
A year or two after.
Yeah, had to be within a year. He was going to leave and become go into sales, but Don James, this is where that UW connection is, right? Don James, his head coach, said, "No, man, I think you need to be a coach." And he's like, "I don't know." And he goes, "No, you need to be a coach." Basically, Don James, he couldn't say no. Don James was going to make him coach, and that's how it all started. So geez, I mean, what is he in his 20s, 70s? God, the guy's been coaching over 30 years, 40 years.
Let me see.
Like, that's a long time, man. But yeah, that's essentially the bare bones of the story, right? But like Don James, as he knows, like Don James was like no walkover. He basically, you look at Saban's two biggest impacts from early on in his life that impact his overall coaching, right? And you look at his dad, number one, his dad's a huge implementer of that. And then you look at Don James and the style of Don James. And Don James wasn't like he wasn't a screamer. He was more like you just knew, right? Like he just would let you know, like, oh man, he's that type of dad where like you mess up, you get in the car, not much is said. You can just tell he's disappointed.
He coached 51 years.
51 years.
Or 50, because I suppose, yeah, Jimmy, you're right, because I accounted for 2024, and technically he retired on the precipice of 20. So yes, 50 years. Come on, man. Like, you know what I mean? If I do anything for 50 years, I'm going to be like, yeah, it's time to get the heck out of here.
50 years. I mean, you got to really love it to, and good for, and he did, obviously. I think that was a passion of his, was developing young men. And he just was one of those guys who had that work ethic, very much like his dad. You know what I'm saying? His dad had that same work ethic with the businesses he owned.
The gas station, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jimmy Lee says, tomato.
Saban
did it his way and went out. Yeah, 100%. And he deserved to, right? Like,
Yep.
I'm still thinking Milroe and DeBoer putting a 50 piece on Kirby. So I saw someone here earlier, and I think we can discuss this. Jonathan McMillan says everyone seems to be writing off Alabama. Vegas seems to think Georgia is coming to Tuscaloosa and beating Alabama. I'm not mad at Vegas for that.
No.
Right? Like, it's Georgia. And don't get me wrong, that's not to say that I think this Georgia team isn't without its questions. But if you're telling me, Ty, there's one team out there, like right now as we sit here and are talking, if you give me Alabama's schedule and you say, Bama, there's one team they're not favored against, who is it? My first answer would be Georgia.
Yeah,
why?
100%.
Because Kirby's kind of made a machine over there. They have some continuity. They recruit very well. I get it, right? That's the one I get. The one I don't understand for the life of me, and it's not necessarily favored, is how LSU is ranked as the number 3 team in the SEC. I'm like, first off, Ole Miss should go above LSU.
Oh,
And I
for
don't
sure.
understand how you put LSU ahead of Bama whenever they have a lot of questions. So Kirby in Georgia is the one on Bama's schedule, Jonathan, that though I might not necessarily agree with Vegas, I understand why. Like that makes 100% sense to me. It's like, okay, if we're going to lose to anybody, I would personally rather it be Georgia, because then if at the end of the year, if you have one loss, Jake, and you get to point and you're like, no, the only loss we took is to Georgia. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's as losses aren't good, but as far as losses come, that's as good of a loss as you're going to have all season long, right? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I understand where the books are with Vegas and in Georgia. I think they look at returners. I think they look at ETN coming in at running back. They, from a standpoint of Georgia aspect, I think there's three teams I don't want to lose to in general, though, and I think that's Georgia, LSU, and Auburn, obviously. And the reason a lot of that on my end, at least with this new coaching staff, is from a recruiting aspect. I would take a loss somewhere else, and I would be okay with it. I mean, it can be humbling at times to take that loss, and it can propel you into winning a championship. But between Georgia, LSU, and Auburn, those three, I really don't. I don't want to lose any of those. And we look at Georgia's recruiting weekend of what they just had on campus, right? And it was a big recruiting weekend for them. A lot of recruits walked out of there very, very impressed. Georgia schemed it up perfectly from a recruiting aspect, right? And they schemed it up from a standpoint of who they brought in, right? With Sanders Jr., with Zaire Addison. There's another offensive line there. Was Michael Carroll there this weekend too? Might have been Michael Carroll. I have to go back and look who else was there. Babalo or Haywood, I can't remember. And then you look at the wide receiver room and who they had there. I mean, Georgia had a very big recruiting week. They stacked all the 5 stars together, brought them in for recruiting, and pumped them all up and said, look what you can do here. Now, guys got to remember, be careful of that. There's a game that's played. There's a reason. It's a hype game, right? Hype. So, got to be real careful of that. So, but Georgia did have a huge weekend. They have a great program. I'm not going to take away from what Kirby Smart's done at Georgia. He's taken them to the next level of what they used to be a long time ago. But those are the games I don't want to lose. I do not think that Georgia's losing to Bama in Bama. I don't think so, but I can understand why Vegas selects it, though.
I would probably replace Georgia with Tennessee for me.
Oh, you don't want to lose Tennessee?
No, because Tennessee has got a very active NIL fund. And if they can beat Bama again, they'll be telling all these recruits, hey, there's a new dog in the SEC. And here's my reasoning, Jake. Bama has beaten Georgia every time they've played, minus the one national championship. And Georgia's recruiting has still stayed what it is, right? Like they're still recruiting at the top levels. So I think that whenever we look at this, it'd be more understandable for year one, which is still going to be very much, Georgia had the number 1 class in the nation in 2024. The number, let's go to 2023. If 24/7 Sports will load anytime this afternoon, the number 2 in 2023, 2022, number 3. So I just... Right. Tennessee is the one where I think if you lose to Tennessee, it's almost saying, oh, well, now there's a totally new pecking order in the SEC, right?
Yeah.
That's where and he's an offensive minded coach. He will be able to then be like, okay, well, my veer and shoot, why not come here? So that's where I probably sit.
I get you on that. I think the hard part for me is like, if I look at it's the new coaching staff that really puts it out there, right? Because I think everyone was used to Saban, Kirby for a minute there. Like they got used to that and they just felt like, okay, you can't go wrong either way. But now I feel like it can take a dramatic hit. Whereas I don't feel like, Hoople, however you say his name, right? I don't feel like he's as much of a threat. I mean, is what people say. Now, again, like, yeah, you could say his
because they're
offense.
not beating Bama.
Well, and that's true. That's true. But I mean, at the same time, they're losing games they shouldn't have for a minute, and there's just not the excitement around Tennessee, and I think is just not there. Georgia, LSU, I see the excitement. Brian Kelly's doing a good job of promoting the everything that LSU can give to somebody. Again, one of those guys, I have to look at the type of coach I'm playing for. Like when I was going through a process, I really thought about who I'm playing for, and do I look at this guy as someone I look up to? Do I want to make him proud? Right. Because that was a huge motivator for me, thinking about that now. Not every kid obviously thinks that way, but I don't know. I just feel like is it someone I would want to be like? You know what I mean? And when I look at DeBoer, that's where it is for me. Like that's someone I would want to emulate every day. His style, like the way he looks at things, the way he attacks life, and his mindset, and the fact that he just wins everywhere he goes. He wins. So for me, I think that's the thing. I look at it, and that's why it's hard to jump on board with Tennessee, because it's just like, what have you done though?
That's why I don't want it though, because I understand what
Fair
you're
enough.
saying, but to me that aligns perfectly with what have you done? Well, if they start beating Bama, now it's, oh, well, now we are taking your place. Whereas if it's Georgia, it's like, okay, well, this is either a 1A, 1B situation. Where if you lose to Tennessee, now it's like, oh, we're not even 1B. Oh, there goes I hate it.
Yeah.
I hear you, but Tennessee has had one recruiting class inside the top 10 in the past 3 years. You lose to that, and then it's like, okay, well, can they start catching fire? They have an active NIL collective.
Yeah. No, I see where you're coming out with that. That makes sense. I get that. I think I'm looking at it from a standpoint of what's more advantageous for the coaching, for like Alabama's coaching staff, and like
that I agree with you. See, I'm looking at this from the other perspective, like what's more advantageous for a Heupel or a Kirby, and I think Tennessee stands probably to gain the most if Alabama starts to falter, because we always have conversations about LSU being a good team, right? Like that's always a team you have to, and we know Brian Kelly's up there. We know Georgia is there. But if Tennessee can start like racking up wins, then it's like, okay, so now they're trying to get into this conversation. And then you automatically have to put Texas in the conversation. And so now it's just a lot of teams start crowding. And so that's why I don't want to lose to Tennessee.
Oh, well, and and I think that makes sense on that concept. I'm just saying, I think biggest thing is in year one. My biggest thing would be in year one. I wouldn't mind a loss to Tennessee in year one. Now, do I think it's going to happen? No, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. But at the end of the day, like I wouldn't want to be that if you look at the schedule, we've talked about this before, who would you even want to lose to? You know what I'm saying? Like I would rather take the loss to Wisconsin early on than any of the other SEC teams at this moment in time. That would probably be it for me. I would rather take the loss to Wisconsin, get everybody like, oh, they're off, they're done, no, they're over it, and then they have an explosive SEC run, right? That's my thought process on that. If I were to say I want one loss, that would be where I take that loss.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I would probably agree with you. That way it's a successful SEC run. I 100% agree there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I think Alabama loses to Georgia. I think Alabama's offense is going to give Georgia a lot of problems, and Georgia has some things they got to replace. They got a lot of things they got to replace. They got to show me, but that's the loss that I think would be the easiest to digest, because it's like, okay, well, it's Georgia, right? Like, and now you'll have your crack at them again in the SEC championship game. And then you can go from there. Whereas I really don't want to lose to LSU. Like that to me would be the one where it's just like, okay, we cannot lose to LSU because they have so many questions this year.
I know
that can't happen.
Yeah, I know. That's a big one. That's a big no. Just because, and also with those, just the way they're trying to really hit the trail and recruiting within the SEC. I think they're trying so hard. Granted, they took a little lump with DeCornia Moore, right? Like stepping away and exploring other programs. Sounds like what, Texas was the one to get
I
him.
think Texas is going to win that. But let's be
Mhm.
honest here, ladies and gentlemen. He released a top 3 of Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State. I don't think any school out there feels great whenever Brian Hartline steps up to the plate.
Yeah, he does a good job. His recruiting's good, and it's obviously Brian in general. You just got to look at his overall resume.
Yeah.
He's a stud. He's a good coach. He's going to be head coach soon. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Brian ends up moving into a role, if he doesn't step away this next season, towards like an offensive coordinator role. But what are you crossing those fingers for, Ty? Give it to me.
Get him out of there. Let him be a head coach somewhere.
Well, is he going to head coach or offensive coordinator first? I don't know.
Listen, I don't care, but Ohio State has resources. They have a brand. They have resources. They really invested in their NIL. Let him go be an offensive coordinator or head coach somewhere that maybe doesn't have the brand or the resources, because he'll still recruit well. But we won't have to worry, because let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, there are like 4 or 5 brands in college football that will get you in a room. Not necessarily saying you're going to win the battle, but it will open the door. And it's like, oh, you're with who? Come right on into the living room and deliver the pitch.
Yeah.
Ohio State, unfortunately, is one of those brands where I don't know if they're like maybe on that level of like the premier, but at the same time, you're going to get into a living room with Ohio State as a
Something
brand.
to consider.
I
can tell you, like, even when I was playing back then, Ohio State was good, right? Like, Ohio State, like, my biggest thing was I remember watching them versus Miami when they had Maurice Claret, right? And Jim Tressel's the coach over, in the championship. So I remember Ohio State, and they were, but I don't know if I could say, like, if I look back during those time frames, at least for me, it was always, Miami was a big school, still powerful. Florida State was still powerful. Bobby Bowden. Florida was now the school to go to. USC, Texas still had a lot of firepower, especially after kind of you could feel that Texas has always just been around. Right?
Yeah.
Like, they're always that team. Oklahoma, with Bob Stoops. So,
and Switzer before that. I mean, OU.
yeah, I know. OU's
I think
always
owns
bad.
the longest winning streak in all of college football.
I think Georgia does now.
Oh, no. I mean, OU's was like up in the 50s, man.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow. That's impressive.
47 in a row. Oklahoma has the longest winning streak, 47 in a row from 1953 to 1957.
Wow. 47 in a row.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Don't let it fool you when they haven't won a national championship since 2000 or 2001. They got a history now. Like, they have got a crazy history there. So yeah, it's interesting. Now, Brian, I don't think either of us are necessarily saying this beat Bama once means good team for next 5 years. I don't think that's either of our contention, but we do have to break into the nuance of there is a changing of the guard at Alabama right now. And now I want to make sure that a team can't capitalize off of the changing of the guard, right? And so that's why I gave the analysis I did, Jake, because I look at it like who has the most to gain. When I look at Georgia, they've been a top 3 recruiting team in the nation regardless, even when Kirby couldn't buy a win against Nick Saban. Whereas I look at a Tennessee and it's like, okay, I think you could be a team that gains. LSU, I think you could be a team that really gains from Alabama if you were to stack some wins against them. That's how I look at it. It's not necessarily that, it means you're good, but there is a changing of the guard, and you don't want that to permeate down into the standings of the SEC, right? That's kind of how I look at this. But I do 100% agree with you, Jake, about like Georgia would have a lot to gain by beating Alabama. I agree with that, though. Like, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I'm only looking at it early on from like a recruiting aspect, right?
Yeah.
Because you still need, like right now, you're playing this game with Saban's guys, and so what he's recruited, what's been there, DeBoer needs to establish his own form of dominance over the SEC, and the way you do that is by kicking some of the guys' ass who think they're at top, right? And the way you make notifications, right, to all the recruits and all the people in the SEC, the college football world, because the college football world revolves around the SEC, is by going in and being dominant and winning those against those teams that are considered the best of the best right now, right? At least that's how I see it from a future of success, right? So, I mean, either way. Again, like I told you, I think the biggest thing is I would rather take a loss at Wisconsin than
I agree.
SEC. So
I agree, and Fickle's a heck of a coach, man.
Oh, Fickle is a great coach. I'm impressed by Fickle, 100%. It's going to be exciting to see what he does with Van Dyke too.
Now, I wanted to get to this right here because, oh man, where did it go? Did I not star it? Jermaine Mims asked us a while ago whether or not we thought, let me see if I can find it. I really thought I'd start it. It was back here.
Let me know if you see it.
Here it is.
Oh, cool.
He says, do you see Brian Ellis and Mo Linguist is next up for coordinator when Kane and Nick leaves for head coaching jobs eventually? I don't mind either of those moves. What do you think, Jake?
I don't either. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he goes about this with promotional wise. I think when you look at Brian Ellis, he is a stud. I do see him obviously being an offensive coordinator. It will be interesting. How good Nick does this year is going to determine the next year to 2 years with Sheridan. Brian Ellis, 100%. I do see that. I think that's why the coaching staff is stacked the way it is you have a lot of guys who can move into that role potentially, even with Coach Cap. I mean, all you got to do is look at his offenses at North Carolina and how similar they were in the sense of scheming. But with Mo, he's another big one. I do want to say, though, that I think Shepard would be probably the next one up, offensive coordinator-wise, if that were to be the case. I think you'd see Jamarcus Shepard.
That's why he's been working as passing game coordinator.
Yeah, 100%. He's kind of prepped and ready for that role. With Mo, I do see that being the case. I think with Mo, first he has to, yo, Nicole, what's going on?
Happy to see you here, Nicole. Hope you're having a great Monday.
Yes. But when it comes to Mo, I think he has to establish himself overall. I think the thing with Mo is he has bounced consistently. Like, he's been very active as far as his journey as a coach, just all over, right? Which is good from an experience standpoint, but I think it will benefit Mo to stay in place for a minute. Yes. And whether that's to promote to D coordinator when Womack leaves, I do think, yo, Dwight, what up, my dog? I do think this, man, is that with Mo, the benefit here is going to be that he establishes some recruits, he gets himself into this game, and then with Alabama and really kind of building that again as far as his overall presence and who he is as a coach. I think that's where it benefits you as a head coach later on, is kind of build a name for yourself again. Because Mo, it's not like he hasn't. He's a really great coach and he's unbelievable. I think it just took a little bit of a hit though, moving as much as he was moving. I mean, it was constant, from one school to the next, to the NFL, back down.
And always upgrades, but movement nonetheless.
Yeah. There's something to be said about staying in place for a minute.
Yeah.
So
we have a question from Nicole says, my guys. Dwight says, Ty, J-Mare. What's up, guys? What's up, Dwight? How'd you like that boxing event this weekend, man. I got a few guys on that boxing card, Jake, that like you got to watch.
Yeah, man. It was
There's
dope.
one cat, Mark Chamberlain.
Mm-hmm.
He fought in the undercard on the main event right before.
Yeah.
And the dude he fought had more knockouts than he had fights. He went in there in the first round, and the first left he threw, just a little left straight, didn't even fully rotate into it, but did rotate, enough to generate the power, sat this guy down. And then when he got up, he got him against the ropes and just picked his shot so beautifully. That's a name to watch in the lightweight division. Some exciting fights could be happening. And Dwight, you already know I need to hear about it, man. David Mills asks, no shade at Coach Kalen DeBoer, but with head coach exception, is this staff much improved over Saban's last few staffs? And I think we can walk through room by room, man. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Where would you like to start? I think what we'll do is you take a room, then I'll take a room, and we'll just keep going like that until we go through the entire position coaching.
Yeah, no. Well, I think real quick, I saw Coach Smook giving us the shout out in here. 100%. Where you at, Coach Smook?
There he is.
Oh, there you are. Woo woo. Coach Smook's birthday yesterday, man. So
happy birthday.
Yeah, dude. Big 3-4, man. Happy for you, dude. Happy for you, dude. Throwing out good stuff. Oh man. Hey man, it's not that old. Come on, guys. Come on. But I think the first room we go with is, let's just look at it from a standpoint of quarterback room, Ty. Quarterback room.
Okay.
Just because, I mean, that's where everyone's questions are coming in right now is, I think it's a super improvement. What do you think?
Yeah, no. Listen, if we're taking QB, I'm going new stuff. Hey man, I feel old though. I found a few gray hairs in the beard, and I was over here having an existential crisis yesterday. I was like, what is happening to me? I'm wilting away into nothing.
Yeah, tell me about it. I mean, I'm the one I must be the old dog then, man. I'm 36, so
I'm 29.
Oh, see? Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. Everybody's, hey, Ty, you still look young as can be. You still got a baby face, Ty.
Oh, if I shave, it's real bad. That's why we keep this, because I don't want to do that to the good people out there.
Oh, got you. All right, Coach. Peace. But yeah, I'd say that quarterback room, man, is where it's impressive. You know what I'm saying? Like massive improvement. You obviously saw what they did with Penix. And you have to remember, man, like Penix comes from Sheridan, who's his recruiter, right? And DeBoer system. Penix success, that were at least what we would have seen as early success, right? At Indiana before he gets injured, 2 years, that's under Sheridan, right? I mean, and DeBoer, but Sheridan over there in that QB room coaching him, I feel really good about it, man. I feel great about the upgrade in QB room.
Okay, so you like upgrade at QB room. I'm going to keep a list, okay? So, obviously, running back coach, we're going to skip because we retained Gillespie, and he's one of the best, so I'll circle that one. Same with defensive line. We'll just circle that one because it stayed the same. I'll take wide receiver next. Okay. I like Wiggins. Wiggins was a solid recruiter, but there's a crazy stat, Jake, that of the 13 wide receivers Wiggins recruited, something like that, 12 of them transferred. It is incredible.
Yeah.
We now have Shepard, who just sent 3 wide receivers to the NFL. I looked at this the other day. Bama has 9 wide receivers in the NFL. They had the most production of any university of wide receivers in the NFL, both in terms of yards and in terms of touchdowns. Ohio State coming in number 2, both Alabama and Ohio State getting to boast that they have 9 wide receivers in the NFL, and this is after the 2024 NFL draft. But then when you get into the nuance of the conversation, Shepard sent 3. I don't think that there's a question that Coach Shepard is an upgrade, all due respect to Coach Wiggins. But I just think Coach Shepard, listen, like Coach Sean would say, shout out to Coach Sean, the truth is in the details.
Boom.
And yeah, so I'm going to say Coach Shepard is an upgrade. Jake, what room are you taking next?
I'll jump over to offensive line because I really like Coach. I like Coach Cap a lot, and we'll just kind of keep working our way down. It's interesting, right? It's very difficult with this one. This one, I think everyone thought was going to be a home run for Saban, right? Wolford, I looked like he, based on what he had done. I mean, you look at what he was able to do just alone. Was it like Youngstown State University, right?
And Kentucky resembled the big blue wall.
Yeah, man. I mean, look at that, dude. Like, broke 32 records during his tenure over there at with the Penguins. That's kind of wild.
The Penguins?
With the Penguins. Yeah, I mean, that's nuts.
That's kind of sick.
Yeah, the Penguins. I mean, he was a great coach at Kentucky, but I just don't know what it was. His recruiting, I feel like, was on point. Like, he was a good recruiter from what he had shown, but I don't know if it just did not click all the way through. It's not like he's saying he had bad offensive lines, but it just wasn't the same, I think, production wise as you saw him at Kentucky, right? You know what I'm saying? Now you look at Coach Cap, who's coming in, and we have yet to really see what Coach Cap is going to do. But you look at what his background is, how long he's been doing this, his energy level alone, I think where you see this guy, like, how can this guy not be successful? He understands the schemes really well. That's what I think was pretty impressive. You know, Ryan Grubb was an offensive line coach before he was an offense coordinator. Okay. The same thing went with like Coach Cap, who then becomes an offense coordinator over at North Carolina, right? Where he turns out like studly offensive line, studly running back rooms. And then on top of that, you know, with Mitch Trubisky, right? Who is breaking records left and right as offense coordinator over at North Carolina. And then he jumps ship, right? He goes over, I think, what is it, Michigan State from there, I believe it's Michigan State. And he recruits some good offensive linemen there. And then takes this next stop over at a Baylor, which couldn't even say he was necessarily at Baylor because.
Yeah, I mean, he was there in spirit.
Yeah, in spirit, and then comes to Alabama. I think he is a great pickup for what they want to do on offense. I think from a development standpoint, he understands the scheme really well. I think he's going to get everything in tune, and it will just correlate really well with DeBoer's offense and what they're going to do. I'm excited to see it. Do I feel like it's an upgrade? For now, just for now, I would say I would equal them out.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's an upgrade right now.
Because, and Hacker says I'm also guilty. Listen, I will always be the first in line. I really thought Alabama had a home run hire in Wolford. And if you talk to people in the industry, they love that guy.
Yeah, he's impressive.
Very highly respected. Very, very highly respected offensive line coach, has been able to develop offensive lines, has made a tangible difference in every offensive line he had been at. First year he came to Alabama, he inherited an offensive line that was like number 101 in the nation in terms of sacks allowed. Within 1 year, took them to like 50 in terms of sacks allowed. And then this year, it just fell off. But I think this is where we get into the conversation as Ephraim with the $20
Thanks,
saying
brother.
really good content, gents. Thank you very much for being here, man. Thank you very much. This is the conversation where it's like, does your offensive line philosophy mesh with the offensive coordinator philosophy?
I know, man.
And that's where I think there was the disconnect. That's just my opinion.
I think you're spot on. That's interesting that you bring that up real quick, Ty, because it's like we keep going back to these points, and this is not like blaming Tommy Rees, right? But I think we keep going back.
No, it's a cogwheel, right?
Yeah,
multiple spokes.
I think there was an idea of what the identity wanted to be, and I think you grab Wolford from Kentucky because of what he did to the run game at Kentucky, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, that was a big part of it. But then Tommy Rees is trying to figure out how to utilize his weapons coming from Notre Dame, where Notre Dame seemed to have more balanced attack. Wolford seems to be focused on a powerful run game first, And so you're right. Like there seems to be a little bit of out of sync. I think that's what's been impressive with DeBoer is his ability to, offensively at least, to know what works for his offense, to make sure the right talent is in place, but also it all synchronizes because we don't want it, like an offbeat here or there.
What were we just talking about with the offensive and defensive hires whenever we were
Yeah.
asked about Kane Womack? Why I like the hire is because we know that it meshes with DeBoer's philosophy of offense.
Mhm.
So you don't have this disconnect in between. And I know that sounds crazy because it's like, oh, well, the two aren't like, how are they related? But
Mhm.
it is. You want to make sure that there is a cohesive theory amongst even the offense and defense so that way you always are putting your best foot forward, right? And I think there are several schools we can look at where maybe there wasn't the most cohesive theory all the way down. And even though there were great coaches, it just didn't work. I'll go next. I'll take tight end coach. This is tough for me
I know.
because I can't in good faith argue that Byron Ellis isn't an upgrade. I can't. But I really liked Joe Cox.
I know. Joe Cox did a good job.
I think he is a really good tight ends coach. I think he is going to prove that he is a really good coach.
Mhm.
I have nothing negative to say about him. I
Mm-mm.
only have positive to say about him. But Jake, how can I argue that it's not an upgrade whenever Byron Ellis, from an offensive standpoint, set records with Bailey
Records.
Zappi at Western Kentucky? Like, that would just be a facetious argument. So,
Yeah.
Joe Cox, this actually pains me because
Mhm.
I think you were a great coach. I think that you have a bright future. How did we not upgrade from an offensive perspective with Ellis? Like, that guy might just be a hidden gem in all of college football. There's a few of them. The other one, I cannot. Jake, I have been the past week. I swear something's going on with my mind. I am forgetting names, like people that I will just talk to, friends for years, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know your name. I don't know your name anymore. And now I've forgotten the UNLV offensive coordinator's mind. He came from Pittsburgh, was the wide receiver coach at Texas, runs the go-go offense. I think
Oh.
he is a gem in college football.
Mhm.
But I also think that Ellis is a gem in college football. I think that's an upgrade, and it is overload, Davis. I got a lot of things going on in the background, and I'm really starting to see like a legit cognitive decline where it's like I don't remember your name, and we've been friends for 8 years.
Dude, that just happens, man. You're about to turn 30, Ty. That's just the way it is. Just
My mind is not doing well right now.
It's a joke, everybody. Just kidding. It's all good. It's all good. I think I'm gonna be honest, man. I just go through like brain like
Brennan
whoop,
Marion.
forget. Oh, there you go. Perfect.
It's Brennan Marion. I
Perfect.
think Brennan Marion is a gem in college football.
Mhm. Yeah.
That guy's great. Remember that name.
Yep.
Remember the name Brennan Marion. But Ellis, that's an upgrade. That's an upgrade. All respect to Joe Cox because I think you were a fantastic coach.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Well, I mean, Ty, you nailed all the points on Brian Ellis. So next one, we skipped D-line, right?
You can go OC. We haven't done OC yet.
Well, I mean, Sheridan, for me, sorry, I took that as quarterback room. So
you're right there as well.
Yeah. So me, I do think from an upgrade overall, it 100%. Nick Sheridan, great offensive coordinator, going to do some amazing things. Bright. He was already kind of labeled that bright young mind coming out into his young coaching career, but now, having a chance to spend the amount of time he spent with DeBoer and in this offense, the success it's had, I see it continuing to upwards and onwards, my friend. So thanks, man.
I hope that it's scurvy, Lance, because I need an answer. I don't know what's happening. I think it's just stress. I just think it's stress, honestly. So I'm over here writing this down.
Mm-hmm. The defense is going to be an interesting one. And real quick, I'm going to jump to this question real quick with Lynn. Ty Merrill, would you guys think about if Dabo beats Kirby first game of the year with Dabo, no transfer rules, and UGA living in the portal? I have my thoughts. Want to know yours if Clemson wins.
I mean, it would be very impressive, no doubt about it.
Super impressive. I think it would. Man, I think it would be probably one of the biggest talking points as far as just Clemson beating Georgia. Not even the transfer portal stuff, but I do think it would be brought up quite a bit. I think it would give Dabo I think it would just put him in a position to finally like say, okay, I told you so. But I don't know if just the transfer aspect of it would be that significant. I think it would just be significant from a standpoint of people saying like, oh, okay, Clemson's on the way back up,
Yeah, because, and listen, I understand loving what you get out of high school. I understand that. That's great.
Yeah.
You cannot, in an ever-changing landscape, put your feet in cement and say, I'm not going to change because I don't want to. That's not going to work. Why he refuses to adapt, I don't understand. I think in Dabo's mind, he still views Clemson as the number 2 team in college football. You're not. You've been passed by several programs. Their offense has been bad for years. Their defense has been it's good. It's good. But I don't know. I understand where he's coming from. But like some of his comments, I just have to bury my hand in my bury my face in my hands because it's just like, why? Like, oh, we did take a bunch of transfers. Every kid that comes from high school is a transfer. I'm like, just don't talk. Just don't say anything that, like, if I was their PR, I would come in there and like I'd have a little like rubber hammer and I'd be like, bad.
You're like, come on, dude.
Don't say anything.
Wrong. Yeah. Nah, that's the thing, man. Is the hard part too is like I like Dabo. Like I want him to win.
I do too.
He seems like a real personable guy as far as like
I think he's a great guy.
The way he coaches, the way he interacts with his players.
My roommate camped for him. So I had one roommate who played for Pete Golding at UTSA. I had another roommate who ended up having some things happen, didn't end up playing college football, but he camped for Dabo. In fact, he's got video of him going up against Sammy Watkins.
Oh, that's cool.
Just repping it out. And he loves Dabo. And I mean, he's always said he's a great guy. And because of that, I love Dabo, right? Like, I don't mean to be hard. I'm very much of the mindset that like life is like the ocean, where if you try and stand with your feet in the sand, right? Like you're going to get pushed around. You have to go with the ebb and flow of life, right? Like that's very much. And Dabo is just like, oh, well, I won some national championships. Now college football needs to bend to my will. Life doesn't bend to your will, right? Like you have got to take what life gives you and make the best of it, not saying, no, they're going to bend to my will. That's where I'm just like, Dabo, you were going to minimize your own legacy by just because this is what you remember. We talked about this. I still think Dabo is one of the better coaches from an X's and O's perspective. But why, just because you don't like something, are you willing to just like diminish your legacy? I don't understand it.
Well, here's the conspiracy theory. Like I love conspiracy theories. Like nice. I love like thinking about stuff like, that's being done on purpose, that's meant to trick. I think here's the conspiracy theory I put out there is that Dabo is doing this for roster retention because he likes what he has on his roster, and that he's doing it a little bit to be playful with some of the key things he wants from recruiting this year. And then next year, we're going to see him just like attack whatever portal is still alive, whether it's 1 portal, 2 portals, 5 portals, whether it's, you're portaling to another world. I don't know, but whatever portal is available.
That's fair. Players. That's fair.
But I do. It might be one of these little ploys, man. So I'll tell you what, man, like I like Dabo, always like Dabo. Matter of fact, one of the books I'm about to read is on Dabo Sweeney. So I'm a big reader too, man. I read a lot of books. So But like, man, I'll tell you what, there's some good ones out, dude. Some good ones. But anyways, we go off topic. We jump back over.
Friend. Yeah, listen, I want him to succeed, but I'm just very much Lynn of the mindset, and you being a business owner, I'm sure you can, relate to this. You have got to adapt with what's happening. The people that don't adapt are the people that fall by the wayside. And like, the guy's got so much talent, I don't want to see that happen. Right? That's just I don't want it to happen. But it'd be fascinating, right? Like, I certainly hope Dabo does well because, like I said, my roommate, actually one of the groomsmen in my wedding, he speaks so highly of Dabo. He's like, Ty, he's such a good guy. He's so genuine. He's authentic. Like, and I believe all of that. I believe all of that. I want him to succeed because I've never actually, I think someone else I knew either played for him or was like very much about to go to Clemson. And they just, I've never heard someone just like say a bunch of bad things about Dabo. And they love him. So I want him to succeed. I do.
And just watch him. I'm gonna be honest. It'd be hard for me nowadays, like looking back, it'd be hard for me not to play for him. Right.
Yeah.
Like if I had a choice between like playing for Dabo or playing for Nick Saban, I would probably pick Nick Saban from the standpoint that he's coaching defensive backs. Right. Like that would be a lot of fun to just get. And I know this sounds weird, but I'm one of those guys where like I excel with positive reinforcement, but at the same time, I need that criticism. And Nick Saban has, I very much tune in because I'm deaf in my left ear, but I really tune into body language and then tone of voice, not so much of what's being said to me, but to process things and to feel like my energy and the way I'm about to respond to something is based on from a criticism standpoint is really based on like that tone of voice, that body language. Nick Saban for me has that motivating aspect. Everybody gets motivated through different ways and the way they hear people, right? Some people are good at motivating a lot of people. Some people are only good at motivating certain people. For me, that's where it tunes in. But without that Nick Saban aspect, I like the way Dabo presents stuff and just has that personality, man, that I could really attach to. So
yeah, no, I don't disagree. That's why I think that's why I do get frustrated because if I didn't want him to succeed, I would just meme him nonstop. Yeah. Like I would be making memes 24/7, 365. But I do want them to do good. And that's where my frustration comes from. Is like, man, I want you to succeed. So succeed, do it.
Yeah. Do it. Damn it. Do it.
But let's hop back into the defensive side.
Let's go.
So you went offensive coordinator, right? Okay.
Yep.
I will go DC.
Okay.
I think it's an upgrade. Listen, you had more of an old, like, I think everybody out there knew the defensive coordinator last year was just kind of like a bookmark defensive coordinator, right? Like it wasn't the long-term answer. Everybody was expecting Jeremy Pruitt to be the guy.
Yeah.
But Jeremy Pruitt has all the stuff with the NCAA. And so it always, to me, felt like that last year's defensive coordinator, bro, I am so bad right now with my memory. I don't even remember who the defensive coordinator was last year. That's how bad my memory is right now, Jake. This weekend has been tough. I have forgotten names. Like I might need to go get checked out.
It's like Kevin Steele.
It was Kevin Steele. It was Kevin Steele. I always thought that was a stopgap defensive coordinator. Womack, I like his energy. I think he's going to have a fresher take on things. So I'm going to go upgrade for DC.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's an interesting. I'm trying to think if I would go upgrade or if I'd equal them out right now. I'm never going to say necessarily. Actually, I take that back. I am going to say it, and I don't want to because I don't know. I think Kevin Steele, maybe he just was off his game. You know what I'm saying? Because you look back and he has like a lot of success. I mean, you look at some of the things he's done, like he does have success, but maybe he's just older. I think maybe that's probably what it was. You know what I mean? But all right, so then we look at. I'm going to jump over to probably an easier one, I should say. Well, none of these ones are easy, but linebackers coaches, man. I think we get a massive. I think we have a big upgrade from a linebackers coach. I think what you're seeing with Womack and with
Robinson.
Robinson, man, like huge upgrade. Not look, man. I don't like saying that's like that sounds mean, but I just think the energy changes and the understanding and this like because Robinson is like the secret weapon that people don't realize is coming. I think
Yeah.
he's your next DC, to be honest with you. Like I think it'd be Robinson over. I really do. I just think his understanding of the game is real deep, and I think guys really attached to it. You can see it in his recruiting. Like everyone thinks that's Womack pulling in linebackers. A lot of that's Robinson. I mean, it is Womack, but Robinson is. I think he's lights out. Over what was his name?
Robert Balla.
Robert Balla, yeah.
See, I
And
can remember
Balla's
that
good.
name.
He's at Washington now. You know what I'm saying? Like Balla's good. I'm not saying Balla's not good. I mean, he's done some really good development stuff. But
we could even take it a step further. We could say Balla and Inge, whatever, Willie Inge, because now he's and I think Robinson's better than both. I agree with you there. But
Inge
I do
is
like
pretty
Robert
damn
Balla.
good, man. Inge is
like
pretty
Balla.
impressive.
See, I that was the one hire when they made on a defensive side. I was like, eh.
Yeah,
That's
well, a
the
lot of
one
people
that I
say
didn't.
that, but shoot, you look at Inge, what he did with the linebackers at Washington. I mean, dude, there's some good linebackers that came out of Washington. I mean, one got drafted, a couple are still there that we'll see how they play this year. And then, I mean, you look at, I mean, was it Khalil Mack, right? That's his coach.
Yeah.
I mean, Inge is, yeah, Inge is good. A lot of the players liked Inge a lot. They got like a dad feel from him. You know what I mean? Like a real, like your older dad. Like, and I like the way Inge talks too, man. He has this like unique, I just like his style. So
I get it. I'm going to go cornerback next. And this is the one where listen, I like Mo. I like Mo a lot. But how do we want to do this? Is it Nick Saban coaching cornerbacks, or is it the combination of T-Rob and Nick Saban coaching cornerbacks? Because that's how it was.
I would put Nick Saban overlooking safeties and let T-Rob overlook the cornerbacks.
Okay. Even if I'm doing that, I'd probably go T-Rob.
Yeah, me too.
And I like Mo Linguist. That's not to say that I don't think we got a really good defensive backs hire. I really like the defensive back hire. I do.
Yeah.
I think Mo Linguist is going to prove to be a very good hire.
Mm-hmm.
T-Rob was really good for Alabama.
Really good, man.
So that's the first one on the list thus far where I would probably say, and it hurts me to do it because I am excited for Mo Linguist, I'd go T-Rob.
Yeah. I think it was hard for me not to pick defensive backs like safeties and corners because that's my like area, right? But I wanted you to take that one, Ty. Yeah, I do think T-Rob in general from a recruiting aspect. Like I told, my biggest thing is I think Mo is a technical machine. I think he's going to have these guys ready. I'm really excited to see them from the season standpoint, especially after fall ball, after summer workouts, right? And guys just continuing to get prepared and understanding of their role within the big concept and playing to their top abilities. I think Mo will have them prepared. But I do think with Linguist, I just think he needs to stay in place for a minute. I think he needs to pull in some recruits. He needs to produce some guys that he can put. You read guys' bios, right? I read guys' bios and see like what they did. It's always interesting to see when you can attach yourself to some names that you help develop overall that go and be successful. I think that it's there, but it's hard. Coach Mo does not have enough time at each place to attach himself to say like, hey, you were a significant factor. So I think for him staying in place is going to be huge. And I think that will help him get into those sort of lines of guys being familiar with what he's doing. I think he's a phenomenal coach.
I do too.
But he needs to be given that chance. And the way you do that is by kind of staying in place for a minute. So that's where I'm at with that.
Well, now you have safeties.
Well, that's a tough one. No, I'm kidding. That's definitely, look, Hitchler is a stud. I think he's a great coach. He is a great recruiter. I think he is still on the up and I hate saying up and coming because he's already done some things that have really proved himself. He's younger, but again, when you're trying to replace somebody who is established in Nick Saban as a safeties coach, overall, like that, it's like Womack replacing Saban from a defensive mind aspect on defense. And then you have, Hitchler and Mo replacing T-Rob and Saban at the defensive backs. Like there's a lot of pressure for that. I think Hitchler's another one who is going to need to stay in place and establish himself by the way his guys play in their performance before he, just jumps ship to somewhere else or gets promoted. I think it's just going to take a minute. Do I think it's an upgrade? Obviously, we can't say that because the way Saban coached, and he coached defensive backs for so long. I mean, the experience, who he is, it's not an upgrade, right? But do I think that in general, Hitchler has a progression of being one of these phenomenal coaches that he's already starting to show at a young stages within his career? Yes, completely. Does he have a personality that guys are going to attach to? I think he does. I think he really, really, really gets it, understands it. But again, he's one of those guys that just not a lot of people know about yet. The recruits are still, that's a real big change from Nick Saban to Colin Hitchler, especially in the energy level, I think, too, right? Because Hitchler's like, smooth with it. Saban's like, kiss my ass, you better figure this out. Throwing his hat, slamming it. I mean, he's one of my favorite people, man. Coach Saban's like the man. So I can't say it's an upgrade, but I do think like we're okay.
Yes. And that's kind of how I feel about cornerback as well, where it's like I can't say it's an upgrade, but that's not to say that I don't think Alabama is okay and they got a great hire, right? I just and Hitchler, I am probably as excited about him as any coach on this staff. I mean, you're talking about Redfish asking any hope that these guys can bring Peyton's already at Oregon. That ship has sailed.
Yeah,
Redfish. And Tony's still in the portal.
I don't think they're bringing Tony back.
They could, but I don't know, man. I wish Tony all the best. I really wish he would have stayed, but I don't know that Tony will be back because I mean Tony likes the process. You know what I mean? You can go back to his recruiting saga. He likes the process, the flash. And I don't know that this staff is going to be willing to play into the process on the flash. You know what I mean? Like I just think they're going to be like, okay, we just pulled in King Mac and we pulled in Cam Howard. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay,
spot's already taken.
Well, yeah, they technically did replace both Tony and Peyton, King Mac and Cam Howard. So I unfortunately, and don't get me wrong, I think both of those guys are going to be phenomenal players once they land in an area conducive to success. I think they're going to be great. But going back on Hitchler, and then we'll get out of here. Hitchler, I'm as excited about as any coach on the roster. I mean, you look at the way that those guys at Cincinnati talked about him, the way he helped not only the safeties, but the defensive backs as a whole. I mean, they attribute a lot of the development over there to Colin Hitchler. And then at Wisconsin, he was a top, I believe, 10 recruiter in the nation for Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
The guy was responsible for 7 or 8 of their commitments. He can recruit his tail off. But, Jake, you hit the nail on the head. Just because it might not be an upgrade doesn't mean that it's not a slam dunk hire. It's just, who are you replacing?
Yep.
And whenever we look in the secondary, you have T-Rob, who is an elite recruiter. And I mean, you go back to his South Carolina days where he's credited with a lot of the JC Horn development.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the guy has done great work. And then Nick Saban. And I don't think we can name a better defensive backs coach. Not in my life.
No.
Than Nick Saban.
Nick Saban's damn. I wish I could have played for him, man.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been incredible. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have gone. This stream has been going for almost 4 hours. Right? It's almost going for 4 hours. So we're going to go ahead and get out of here before my brain just dissipates any more than it already has. God's mercy. But fear not. You will see us on a panel this evening at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time over at Around the Table Sports as we talk all of college football. This evening, we are going to get in YouTube erasing messages. Oh, could be.
What's going on? I don't know.
Patriot says YouTube erasing messages. I don't know, Patriot.
I haven't seen anything. I don't know.
Lance Hunter says, dude. So we're going to get out of here. 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to talk about all the Power Four conferences, which teams are poised to make a run, which teams are going to be teams you need to know. So Around the Table Sports, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, you're going to get a roundtable panel. You do not want to miss it. And yeah, Jake, what do you have to say before we get out of here?
Man, I think the biggest thing is, we can be really excited about the overall fact that we got 2 new 26 recruits committed. I'm really happy, and I want to give a big shout out to Jamarian Gordon, Dorian Barber, or Barney, and just super, super happy for these guys, man, and I'm excited to see their process continue. I think the next part is don't worry, this defense is going to be okay. I know there's a lot of concerns with defense. We'll continue to get into it through this short off season until July kicks in, right? We got another, month and a half before, roughly 2 months before we start getting back into ball and guys on the field. But the summer workouts are happening. They're going down. And also the biggest thing is if you jumped in today and you loved our content, you loved Kyle this morning, you loved me and Ty this morning, please run those thumbs up. We very, very much appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to coming on with you, Ty, this evening at Around the Table Sports. The panel's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to jump outside of just Alabama football and talk some other football instead. But I appreciate all you guys undefeated in chat. You guys have been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you as always. And let me introduce you to the most esteemed member of the panel, the Spinning Wheel of Doom.
That's right, baby. Roll